So at this point, I'd like to bring the regular afternoon meeting of the Township of Langley Council to order. The first item is the adoption and receipt of the agenda items. Could I have a motion, please? Councillor Davis, second by Councillor Whitmarsh. All those in favor, opposed and carried. Next item is the adoption of the minutes, the regular afternoon meeting of June 11th. Councillor Fox, seconder. Councillor Davis, any errors or omissions? Seeing none, all those in favor, opposed, and that carries. And now I'd ask for a motion to resolve into special closed meeting for the items on the agenda. I don't believe there's any on table. Is that right? So Councillor Fox, second by Councillor Whitmarsh. Is there any on table?
Your Worship, there was at least one extra topic council was going to speak to.
Yeah. Okay, so does anybody want to put anything else on? Yes. No. Okay.
I think Councillor Arneson was considering a topic. I just want to make sure we don't overlook it.
It's push. Push your. Okay. So legal. Okay. So we'll add legal from Councillor Arneson. So with that, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed and carried. We now resolve to special closed. Thank you. All right. Good afternoon. Now I'd like to reconvene the regular afternoon meeting of the Township of Langley Council. And the next item is presentations, and with the consent of council, I'd like to move the presentation D1 to after we hear from the delegations E3. So without any, I just need unanimous consent. So if there's no opposition, then we're good to go. So we'll move that over to just after E3. And we'll move straight to delegations. The first delegation is Christy Juteau. I don't know how to pronounce it. I'm sorry, I messed that up. And from Arocha, Canada. Welcome here.
That didn't work.
And just for the delegation's information, your time limit is 5 minutes, not including questions from council. And you'll see the light turn bright red when 5 minutes is up.
So I apologize, my font didn't transfer, but
Oh, looks good.
Good afternoon, Honourable Mayor and Council. Thank you for having me. My name is Christy Juteau. I'm a professional biologist and I serve as Conservation Science Director for Arocha, Canada. And I'm just here to talk to you about western toad. And some of you may remember I've spoken here before about these creatures. So I have a particular request to ask you, but I wanted to just briefly remind you who we are. So Arocha is a Christian conservation organization. It's international, and we've been based in South Surrey, focused on the Little Campbell River watershed since 2001. And we're focused on trying to improve the health of the whole watershed and engaging in environmental education and in sustainable agriculture. So while many of you may have seen our property on 16th and 192 Street, it's that heritage barn on the corner. We are based in Surrey, but we're focused, half of our work is focused in Langley. This is a picture of the watershed, and the big red dot is where we are, but half of the watershed, as you can see, is in the township of Langley. And the area I'm going to speak to you about today are a couple of ponds just east of 196th Street in the Brookswood Fern Ridge area, and south between 18th Ave and 20th Avenue. These are two former gravel pits that have now been naturalized and is the only location where we've been able to find western toads to be breeding. And we've looked in about 30 other different potential habitat wetlands throughout the watershed, and this is the only place we've found them. So just why do we care about toads? They're a species at risk. They're considered special concern federally. They are also internationally recognized as at risk by the IUCN, and they've been declining, especially through the American part of their range, but they're a sensitive species. Mostly their main risk is that due to habitat loss, but road crossing is actually the second highest reason why they're dying, or what the second highest threat to their population. So this is a picture of an adult and some juveniles. And the unique thing about these toads is they breed communally, so they all come back to the same wetland every year to breed, and then they migrate en masse to their terrestrial habitat. So the places where they breed are really important because they come back there every year. And then they travel all together. So I don't know if any of you guys have you seen a mass migration of toads before? Any of you? No? So, we've been monitoring them since 2013. So this is year 5 of the monitoring, and they typically are migrating en masse for about 2 weeks in early July. So this is about the time when they start to emerge from the pond, and then they start to move, the little toadlets. And this picture on the left, the map, shows the hot spots of where most of them were traveling this past year. So the red is where the highest density of toads were crossing. So you can see generally what we've seen is they exit those 2 ponds, and they exit through around 18th Avenue on that side, and then they move generally northeast. And we're talking about hundreds of thousands of toadlets that are moving for about 2 weeks. So what I'd like to propose is a temporary road closure for non-residents on 20th Avenue and 196th Street. They've been doing this at Ryder Lake in Chilliwack as well to try and mitigate the crossing of the killing of toads as they cross the road. And it's been successful there, so we're hoping to do the same thing here. So, any questions?
Thank you very much. There are a few questions. And I have witnessed that toad migration on the Fort to Fort Trail. There's the pond
That's right.
we reach, and they have signs there to be careful how you tread through there, and they're just everywhere. Yeah, it's
That's
quite
right.
amazing.
Yes.
So thank you. We'll go through the questions. There's several here. Councillor Fox.
But when you run on the Fort to Fort Trail, you're totally aware?
Fly over. I go so fast, I just go right over them.
Okay, fine, good. Could you go back to a couple slides, please, Christy, if you don't mind? Yeah, right there. So you're particularly interested in 20th Ave, is that?
Yes.
I see 3 red lines there.
Yes.
One on 200th, one on 20th, and one on the very western part of 18th Avenue there.
Yes. But we're most interested in 20th because we found where there are lots that have crossed at 18th and 200th, the most cross at 20th.
And so where are they headed?
That's a little bit of a mystery, but we've noticed we've stopped tracking them because they disperse, and so it's a little difficult to track once they're dispersed, but we've seen them just move generally north and east. So if you found a toad in your property, I mean, maybe it's coming from this wetland. They travel kilometers from their breeding wetland.
So if we were to put local traffic, a detour, except for local traffic, I mean, looking at that area, it's not extremely populated. And the residents that live on the western part of 198 to 196 may take the initiative for 2 weeks and go around. It might be a little inconvenient, but they might do that as well. But 200th Street, I mean, down on Zero Avenue, for example, where the geese are right now, and they're hatching in that marsh, in a car it's safe. On a bike it's not. I can attest to that because you get attacked by the mothers. But we have signs out that warn people about geese crossing. Would it, could we look at something like that as just a warning? I mean, to people to make them aware? Would that be something that's functional?
Well, not really, because if you're in a car and the toadlets are covering the road, you just wouldn't have a chance to miss them, basically. So if they may be aware, but they'll just listen to them squishing underneath them. So
yeah, no, I just thought it might be something that had some value associated with it.
I mean, I think awareness is a great idea, raising awareness, and we've been in touch with all the landowners in the area, so they're quite aware. But I think people who zip through from 200 to 16th, that's often a route where people are trying to avoid the light at 200 and 16th. So they'll zip through 20th, 196. We'd like to avoid those people because the local residents, it's okay if it's not very high density residents, like you said. So I'm okay if they're driving through or if they try and avoid it. But if we could avoid those others who don't live there to come through, that would be ideal.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Davis?
Thank you for coming. I was maybe just, what about like a big sandwich board or something that, I just find it fascinating that they're all, how long they're a dime? The size of a dime?
They're about the size of a dime.
When they're an adult? When
they're a toadlet, so when they're moving en masse, when the hundreds of thousands of them are moving, they're about the size of a dime.
Okay. Because what about local traffic then? Why just, you're talking about a total road closure or just because of...
just local traffic only.
But if if the traffic's out there, I guess it's less...
It would just be less impact, yes.
Yeah.
We can't save them all.
You can't save them all. I can remember, 6 or 7 years ago, I was here, and there was a problem with those big toads. Those...
Or bullfrogs?
The big bullfrogs. And I know Councillor Long, he wanted to buy them up, and they only... but he was in the restaurant business at that time.
No, the big ones.
But, okay, I just wondered, because if somebody's aware of that, and if there's thousands of them, it's kind of neat to see them. Well,
yes.
You know what I'm saying?
It's true.
Interesting. Okay, I just thought that maybe education, if, instead of closing the road, if you put a big 4x8 sheet there, a sandwich board, said this is the time, people might, then people will see that and drive ahead to see, and that'll even be worse, maybe. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, thanks. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to make that humor. It's interesting that this is...
We could offer tours, though, like on foot.
Well, that would, yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Arneson?
Yes, thank you, Worship. Thank you very much for coming. I've known for a while, as Council has, about this as an issue because you presented before. So I just want to thank you for your stewardship role. It's very much appreciated. We do have a sustainability charter, and we look at biodiversity and making sure that we're doing the right thing by our species. And as you've pointed out, that this seems to be the only breeding area that we have within our community, and they are endangered. Is that the correct term, actually? Are species at risk, or as opposed to endangered? Or
they are a species at risk, but they're considered special concern, so they don't have the same level of protection as an endangered species. But yes, they're at risk.
Because part of our challenge, obviously, in the larger scheme of things, is that we have species that exist because they have the appropriate habitat, but the legislation doesn't necessarily force us to protect the habitat.
That's true.
That's the issue.
Yes.
Can you explained, I think, about when this would be happening. Do you have any idea about the overall numbers of the toadlets that might be impacted in the migration?
We've been trying to estimate them. It's tricky because it's just difficult to count them because they're moving and there's so many of them. But they've ranged from, in 2015, there was as few as 30 that we counted. But in 2017, last year, we estimate 96,000 that moved through. So it ranges because the females don't breed every year. So there's a bit of a cyclical pattern to them.
And I know you referenced in Chilliwack because I'm aware of what they did at Ryder Lake, and they had a program initially where they put up some fencing and then they tried to create an opportunity, and that did involve road closures there, but now they've graduated to having a toad underpass that they created, which is really interesting. You can actually see it on YouTube, and you can see all these little creatures that are hopping along under there. I'm very supportive of this. I just wondered, would you have an idea about how long the detour would be necessary in order to accomplish this?
I think just 2 weeks during the peak migration. So they'll often will be migrating for about a month, but the 2-week period is when they're really at their highest numbers on the roads.
Okay, and just a final comment further to some other comments, because when I started looking into this in anticipation of your delegation, I noticed that even in places where people are walking and they have signage saying, please be careful of the toadlets, there's still quite a bit of attrition, sadly, for the toadlets, because they are so small. So unless you prohibit movements there, it is a challenge. Yeah, I think we should actually put this matter forward to staff, get them to look at what that would look like and make a report back to us. So we could consider doing this because, as Councillor Fox pointed out, it is a relatively underpopulated area. And if we are going to make any movement in the future to protect them, which I think would be a good idea as we develop out in the area, that we really should have a population to protect at that point. So thank you.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Councillor Whitmarsh.
Thank you. Thanks for coming today. Just a couple of questions. One was, is the peak time for them is in mid-July? Is that what I'm looking at here?
It varies, as you can see from this screen. We've seen them start moving as early as June 21st in 2016. And so it ranges. Last year, they started moving July 12th.
Right.
So we're keeping an eye on them. We monitor the ponds twice a week. And right now they're in tadpole stage. So we're watching their
Right. So
progress.
just from a practical point of view, if we were to do this, do we sort of wait and then we get a phone call? Okay, now we're in peak time, and
Yes.
boom, the barricade goes up, and
Yes.
that's sort of how it works. Something like that. Okay.
Yes.
Okay, interesting. So I'm interested in the word when we talk about a species at risk, and I'm not very knowledgeable about this, but to go from, as it says here, 30 to 96K, that seems like pretty good growth rate over 2 years. And so, but they're still identified as a species at risk, even though we're now at 96K.
So yeah, just to clarify, that's a good observation. But it's not really growth rate from 30 to 96K. It's just a different number each year because the females only breed every 3 to 5 years, and so some years there may only be one female breeding, and then she may not breed again for another few years. So the numbers indicate a fluctuation in population numbers, but it doesn't indicate growth. So it's difficult from just a 5-year sample size to say whether the population is growing or if it's just
Right.
stable.
So out of 96K, there's one female. It could be that one female is breeding on 96K.
No, not likely. 96K, that would be likely a number of females. I wouldn't.
I see.
be able to
Okay.
estimate, yes, but if there are only 30 toadlets, that might only
I got
be
you.
one.
Thank you, Councillor
Okay.
Richter.
Very interesting work that you've done here. A couple of questions. As there was a big population last year, is it likely this year's is going to be smaller? Do you think?
Yes, it's difficult to say. The last 2 years have been, we thought 2016 was a large population because we saw probably tens of thousands, but then last year was even more. So it's difficult to say. Well, we'll find out.
Other question that I had, do you have any estimate of what the mortality rate is? Like, are we losing 50% of the population if cars go through there, or is it 10%? Like,
Yeah, that's also a good question. So last year we initiated some road monitoring where we counted the number of dead versus number of live that we observed, and I don't remember the numbers off the top of my head, but I could follow up with you later to give you an estimate. So we'll be doing that again this year to take a look at what the impact is and if there's an improvement, if there's a road closure.
Thank you. Councillor Qualley.
Thanks. We talk a lot about stuff at this table, but toad mortality, this is a first for me, so thanks for the education. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
You said you've already gone out and spoken to the neighbors
Yes.
on that corridor.
Yes.
And are they sort of amenable to having consideration for this 2-week window?
Yes, I've spoken with a number of them specifically about this question, and they've said, yeah, that's a great idea. We've spoken to 86 different landowners in the area, so all around that buffer of the wetlands, and all that we've spoken with have been really positive about it and are interested in doing what we can to protect them.
Good. I was just curious how the neighbors were reacting. So
Yeah.
we're not obviously going to have an opportunity in the next couple of weeks to reach out and hear from them personally. So it's important that they sort of understand the necessity for perhaps what will be a temporary closure. So thanks for doing that groundwork.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you. There's no further questions. Just to wrap it up. So you're looking for a road closure that would be open to local traffic only, with some options, some signage that would give options to those who want to go around it, is really what you're looking for a period of time, about 2 weeks, that you or someone from your office would advise the township. This is, okay, now they're starting because you can't predict. That's what you're asking for?
Yes, that's
okay,
correct.
So we'll probably bring that up in other business tonight. So thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you.
Okay, the next delegation is Mr. John Moonen and Pastor Dave McTaggart from the to discuss an Agricultural Land Commission application.
Your Worship, members of council, thank you very much for hearing us today. My name is John Moonen. I'm here with Pastor Dave of Southgate Church. And Southgate, as you may know, is operating out of a temporary facility at Langley Mall. It was founded in 1996 by Pastors Dave and Tamana McTaggart. There are 5 trustees, and they have purchased a piece of property at the corner of, oh gosh, this isn't working very well. There we go. Before we get to that, we have 750 members of the church. About 300 of them live in the township. It's growing every year. We have quite a number of staff and a range of ministries, and we asked a few of them to come today, and I don't know if anybody would mind, but if you're here from Southgate, perhaps you could put up your hand. Well, that's better. I asked for 6 to 8 people. I think we got 68. This is just a couple of photos of our congregation. The subject property is 6.3 hectares, 15 acres in the ALR. Uniquely, it was in 1994, it was approved by the Agricultural Land Commission for subdivision into 3 5-acre lots. It wasn't considered integral to agriculture. It was purchased by the church in 2001 for a permanent home. They need 4 hectares for building, although over the weekend we found that we needed less since I submitted this PowerPoint. And in fact, we could build on probably about 5 acres, and we would like very much to farm the remaining 10. As you may know from driving around Langley at 200th and 16th, there's a residence, some outbuildings, and some storage. It has not been farmed for many decades, and as you've seen from the staff report, this is not supported. This use is not supported in the OCP or the rural plan. It doesn't support a church. But we feel that there are a number of benefits, not only to the church, but to the community and to agriculture in Langley for it to be, for an arm farm use to be approved. Roughly 60,000 square feet of the building, a building would be needed. The parking and a driveway. And although this says just under 5 acres to farm, I think we found a way to farm as many as 10. And speaking of farming, we have been in touch with the Langley Sustainable Agriculture Foundation and talked to Dave, and they are prepared to assist us in developing a farm plan for the remaining 10 acres if we get approval, and also to find a farm family who will use it, preferably from the young agrarians. So the other benefit we feel that is maybe of interest to you is that all the facilities that would become part of this facility, this church, including a gymnasium and meeting rooms, kitchen, and the church itself, would be put at the disposal of the Township of Langley, hopefully in cooperation with your Parks and Rec department. So they would help the growing part of a very fast-growing part of South Langley, and meet some of the community and recreational needs, as well as bring 10 acres back into farming. So what we'd like to do is we've made a non-farm use application, and I'm going to forget about the PowerPoint, and I would like to introduce Pastor Dave, who will give his perspective on the church's goals in this application.
Good afternoon, Mayor and councillors. Thank you for taking this time. I'm Dave McTaggart. My wife and I have led Southgate Church for 21 years. We've both been residents of the township our whole lives. I was born in Langley Hospital and took 5 years to go to university and still in Langley. In 2001, we purchased this property, which John spoke about. We are a very community-oriented church. For the last number of years, we have endeavored to serve the Langleys by providing meals for low-income families and the marginalized people who live on the street. We have facilitated personal counseling and recovery programs to help addicts, broken marriages, and people struggling with mental illness. And I might add, with remarkable success. We are a very strong family-oriented church, providing numerous programs for all ages, from infants to seniors. We provide many opportunities for people to strengthen their families and build lifelong relationships. I believe that what we're presenting is a great opportunity for the future of Langley, South Langley. I think we have a lot to offer. As the Brookswood-Fern Ridge communities develop, we'd like to be instrumental as a center that would accommodate the aforestated programs with a desire to increase our effectiveness and our ability to the community. We are open to suggestions from you as to how we can do that. To my knowledge, this property has not been farmed for many decades. We understand the importance of the purpose of ALC, which is dedicated to preserving agricultural land and encouraging farming in British Columbia. Recognizing this mandate of the ALC and their desire to use as much land for farming as possible, we've formulated a couple of options. Creatively, we would reduce the building and parking footprint by having underground parking. Our plan would be to farm the remaining acres of land. We have a letter of intent from Wagner Hills Farm Society discussing farming the land and using their people to help us farm it. As a secondary option, we've approached a local tree farmer who's interested in planting and harvesting trees. We are available to answer any questions you might have, and we'd love to be able to count on your support.
Thank you. I do have some questions from Council. Councillor Fox.
Thank you, and thank you for your presentation to both of you. It's obvious that this is well supported within your congregation as well, by the looking around the room here, which is always nice to see that level of support. So you're looking at roughly a 60,000 square foot building with parking underground?
That would be an option. I think with the way the property is, it's on a slope, that we could probably accommodate that.
Yeah, that house that's there used to be a really nice house. It has a great walk-around veranda there. And I wouldn't walk around it now, but about 20 years ago, it was a really iconic little house.
Well, we bought it in 2001, and the toilet was falling through the floor inside,
Yeah.
so it's not in great shape.
There's firewood there too, I think, actually. The guy before you used to do firewood. Mm-hmm. Anyway, I guess my question relates to the farming piece of an application of this nature, and staff have recommendation is not to authorize this, but so I think that it becomes very, very critical as to what that farming piece looks like moving forward. Would you be willing to actually put a covenant on the document that ensures that particular 10-acre piece of property be fully dedicated to farming in the form of one sort of relationship with, you mentioned too, we also have Langley Sustainable Agricultural Foundation, which I know is very committed to young agrarian opportunities and so on and so forth. And this would be a perfect opportunity because it's right on excellent transportation routes and so on and so forth. So a covenant, is that a possibility?
I think that's a distinct possibility. I mean, we've recognized in this process that that's the valuable part of this property. other than the fact it's never been farmed in my lifetime. But I think that is a possibility, yes.
There is a barn there. I don't know if the barn's salvageable or not.
We had the barn, actually, when we bought the property, we had the barn, actually, we had engineers come in, and it was basically deemed, I think, 30% safe. It has steel girders that are rusting away inside, so it's going to have to come down.
Oh, it'll have to come down?
Yeah.
Okay, fair enough. But I think that if I were to support this particular project and endeavor, I would have to see something kind of official, like a covenant of some nature that really ensured the dedication to the benefit of the farming community in the bigger picture here. Thank you.
Councillor Long.
Thanks, Your Worship, and thanks for coming. I had the same concerns as Councillor Fox. When we first looked at the agenda and saw this item on it, it was a real stretch, I would have to say, especially with staff's recommendation, and even though there was a mention of 5 acres for future development or other activities, it did seem like the majority of the property would be sort of paved up. So, as Councillor Fox has said, if you're happy and willing to maybe do that, then we would have to make a modification on the bylaw when it comes up to put a covenant on it in perpetuity that would bring a farming benefit. And you said I think Mr. Moonen said that he had met with Sustainable Agricultural Foundation, which is Dave. What's his name? Melanchuk, yeah. And this is his gig. He looks at farmland and helps you put a farm plan together that's a win-win. So, with that kind of partnership and commitment to now 10 acres. I think that makes it a different proposal than we've been looking at up until now.
Yes, I spoke to Dave as recently as this morning. He's quite keen. If the land comes out for a non-farm use for a part of it, he'd be delighted to help us with the remainder.
So now that you're at the podium, John, maybe you can explain what challenges or obstacles may Metro present in this application, because there would be a regional growth strategy adjustment required. Is that correct?
Correct, and it's always a challenge dealing with Metro. I don't have to tell you that, but we think that it will have some appeal at the Agricultural Land Commission, which of course trumps Metro on these decisions, because they did approve many years ago the subdivision of this into 3 5-acre lots, and if the church were not to build a church building and farm the remainder, it's likely those would be purchased by a developer and put 3 houses on it. So we think we have some arguments, and I think those same arguments that may be appealing to the Agricultural Land Commission will resonate at Metro.
So it's not a slam dunk, but at least we've got a new path to go down.
Never a slam dunk.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Whitmarsh.
Thanks for your presentation today. No doubt, the history of the church has been very strong in Langley and has done great work for Langley, and so I no doubt that'll continue. Obviously, in this piece of property, what happens from an agricultural point of view is the key factor. Can you just walk me through how you went from a proposal that suggested 5 acres to now it's at 10 acres? I wasn't sure how that happened so quickly.
You the one?
Well, over the last week, obviously we've had meetings and phone calls with councillors, and that became the very strong component of this whole project and what we're looking at. And so we had to reevaluate, okay, what are we looking at? As much as we want to build a facility that would be useful for community, even as a community center, we recognize the requirement for the ALC. And so we've kind of reevaluated this even in this process of application.
So there is 15 acres that you have, and you're suggesting that building would take up maybe 5, and that would leave 10 acres. Is that correct?
That's
okay.
What the current plan is.
That's the current plan. So I guess, in my thinking as well, that somehow the buildings, and I appreciate the community connection and the gym, but also in some ways, how can the building also try to enhance agricultural work on those 10 acres? In some way, can portion of the building or be an educational center around agriculture? What can that be? That might be something that would be helpful, I think, for me. I certainly agree with Councillor Long and Councillor Fox that if there's something that's sort of formally done in place for the protection of that land, but not just the protection of it for agriculture, but that there's actually agriculture happening, I think that's what strengthens the argument. If it was just the church to be built and we had 10 acres sitting there for another 30 years, that doesn't really help you move forward. So certainly, if it was done in an official way, I'm very supportive.
Thank you. Councillor Qualley.
Thank you. Thanks for being here today, and thanks for the information leading up to the application that's on our agenda this afternoon. Just a question, if this, I mean, obviously this isn't our decision, it's our decision to forward it to the ALC, but it's up to them to decide on permission to do this, then you'd need to come back with building permits and all of that. Assuming this sort of happened as you would like and everything moves along quickly, the renderings in your plan are really great and there's lots of potential here. I just wondered, are you guys in a position to do the build out fairly soon, or are you ready to kind of break ground when this thing happens? Or
Well, we're kind of assuming we're looking at a 5-year plan, and we have resources in the bank currently, but we would have to begin the funding campaign as well to finish the remainder of it.
so there is a bit of lag time here in moving the church. So my question, I guess, is the sort of the church's ability to find a home for the interim, because I was under the impression that you needed to move fairly quickly. Is that not the case?
We're considering it. Where we are, there's no room for growth per se, and we're in the old Langley Mall, and it's in limbo a little bit as to what First Capital is going to be doing with the mall space, and so we're just trying to look for the future.
So you haven't actually been told to move out or anything. So you do have a little bit.
We had a discussion with the lease agent. And one of the questions was, how quick could you move out if things changed here? We actually have a year that they have to give us notice, but she was actually asking if it would be less.
Right.
So we don't know. It's up in the air.
I think with the plans you have here, it would be really interesting to see how the dynamic of the church changed, going from sort of like an inner city church to having a facility like this. I think you'd find yourself with an awful lot of new congregants pretty quickly in a new facility like this.
Yeah.
Yeah, so thanks for the information.
Okay.
Thank you. Councillor Fox.
Yeah, just a quick question. This again goes back to the report, but you've got 2 pictures on the report. I know where those pictures are taken from. Are you trying to replicate that building, or is that just to give you, is that an idea?
That was an idea. We wouldn't do exactly, but the footprint, I think what we were asked to is show what kind of space and what size of building we would be putting on there. And it's a very good facility to model.
So you're modeling that, you would model that facility on
To a
this one?
degree, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so no more questions. Thank you very much for your presentation. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, next delegation is Mr. Gareth Abriel. Oh, here it is.
Flashing lights.
It's fine.
It's not electric, no. So good afternoon, Mr. Mayor and Council. My name is Gareth Abreu from the Fort Langley BIA. And I think somewhere in here, Scott from Trinity Western was going to try and make it. But I'm here to ask for your support in bringing bike sharing to the Township of Langley, and more specifically, a pilot project in Fort Langley. So discussions started in 2016 between the BIA and Trinity Western University. We began examining what it would look like bringing bike sharing to Fort Langley. Our initial attempt at a conversation didn't make it too far. We were quoted over $100,000 by a company other than U-Bike that is here with us today. So the conversation stopped. We decided to revisit it earlier this year after seeing a very successful launch of U-Bicycle in Victoria. And to our excitement, the cost was definitely more manageable, and so that's why we are here today. So really, we are looking at building a partnership with the Township of Langley to get this pilot project off the ground. We hope that when the pilot in Fort Langley proves successful, that the Township of Langley will consider expanding this project to other nearby communities. What does this pilot look like? We're suggesting 100 bikes traveling between 4 distinct locations. there would be 3 locations within Fort Langley and 1 at Trinity Western University. Unlike other bike share programs, this model does not require an extensive investment in infrastructure. The technology is in the bikes themselves, not in specialized racks. The U-Bike program, in theory, allows bicycles to be parked legally anywhere within a community which is a part of the program. While this model does have its benefits, we're asking for an alternative model to be considered for Fort Langley. In Fort Langley, we're looking for an installation of virtual zones. So a virtual zone is a specific area that's defined by a beacon where bikes are to be rented from and returned at the end of the rental period. The size of the zone can be adjusted as needed. We strongly believe that virtual zones in Fort Langley are the best way to approach a bike sharing program and keep our sidewalks organized. Secondly, we would like the installation of bike racks in Fort Langley, some of them within virtual zones. This is another feature to help keeping our sidewalks organized. And these bike racks would not be for the exclusive use of U-Bike. They can be used for the entire cycling community. We've discussed several options with Trinity Western University about how they might handle it on their end. There could be no zones, so the entire campus could be free to use bikes, drop it off outside one building, finish your class, hop on it, bike into town. There also is the potential for virtual zones at Trinity Western as well. So we have a sample bicycle in front of you today. So each bicycle does come with a headlamp, a helmet, which is not pictured here today, and there's a basket on the front of it as well. Like I said, the technology is completely in the bike, so there is no specialized rack. So on the back of the bike, there is a little QR code where through the app on your phone, you would go up, complete your rental, scan it, and then the locking mechanism would unlock, and you could ride the bike. To return it, you just have to go into one of those virtual zones and end your rental. This is all done through their app. Each bike is also tracked with GPS to track it if it's stolen or goes missing. So what are we asking for? The BIA and Trinity Western are very excited to bring this pilot project to Fort Langley as quickly as possible. From the time we give a go-ahead to U-Bike, it's a 4 to 6 week lead time, and we could have an operational program in Fort Langley. In theory, if we move ahead today, we could have an operational program by late August. We see an immense benefit in partnering with the Township of Langley. This is a program that we just don't want to see in Fort Langley. This is something that we want to see expanded across the Township of Langley. But Fort Langley is the perfect place to pilot this project. We would imagine that if the Township did consider partnering with the BIA and Trinity Western University, that a staff report would be very likely the case. And we are very excited and open with the opportunity of working with staff. We've had some very preliminary conversations, and they've been very promising. The U-Bike team here is also available to work with staff to address any questions as well. We're very ambitious. I know staff are extremely busy all the time, but we really like to see this project come to life as quickly as possible. And the Fort Langley BIA and Trinity Western are willing to step up to the table with funds to make this a reality. So that's really all I have. I can probably answer any non-technical questions you have. I have the U-Bike team here to answer any technical questions. But yeah.
Okay, well, thank you very much. Maybe you could just introduce the U-Bike team to us.
Sure, go ahead.
Yeah,
Just
Mia from U-Bicycle. I'm on the marketing team, but I'm today here just to show how you can use that bicycle here.
Okay.
Yeah. So everything is app-based. There's a free app called U-Bicycle. People just download the free app and they can have an account with us with just one email address. That's all we need. We don't look for other like personal identity information. And then as you can see on the map, so you will see the screen. It's a map. Since we have one bicycle here, so you will see it on the map at this location. What you do is you start an account, you register with us, put refundable deposit of $50, and then set up as either pay as you go, or we have an option for annual passes. How it works is you just press unlock, scan the QR code at the back, and the smart locks unlock the bicycle itself. So yeah, that's how it works. And also it has the stands to help it, like if doesn't have to rely on bike racks, so it can stand by its own. Also, the tire is a foam tire, so people won't get into a situation with a flat tire with this bicycle. Whenever the wheel is moving, the headlight will be on. We have a reflector, and also the second version has the rear lights. This one has the reflection. We also give a helmet for all the bikes that we deploy with. Yeah.
Okay. Well, thank you. Thank you very much. It's,
Do they come in different colors?
Green,
no,
because
green.
we support sustainability.
Yes.
And it matches the township color.
Yeah. Yeah. Good sales pitch.
And maintenance, there would be a regular maintenance schedule for these bicycles, so you're rotating them in and out. Is that
Yeah,
the plan?
correct. So
Yeah.
our team is responsible. Sorry, my name's Angel. So our team is responsible for rebalancing between locations, and also we have an operations team that does regular maintenance of these bikes.
Thank you. Okay, Councillor Qualley.
Thanks for this. Thanks for this delegation today, and thanks for the hard work you've put into this. I know you and your the team from Trinity has been working with our staff and working hard to come up with this idea and a way to make it happen. So I'm definitely going to support, a staff report on how this could work. I think there's a lot of pieces to this, and there's some good models and some not so good models. So fortunately, there's a way to sort of come to a place where I think this could really work. And you're right, Gareth. I think the Fort Langley Trinity connection is probably the best place to start a pilot project. So thanks for that. Can you go back to your demonstration again and just show me how the helmet connects to the bike and how somebody would access the helmet as part of their rental?
So we actually put the helmet strap, locking it with the smart lock.
Oh, it goes inside the lock.
Yeah.
Okay.
The strap of the helmet actually goes inside, slip it inside the lock, and then close it with the lock. That's how we lock the helmet with the lock.
Okay, and so with the app download, is there any sort of road safety information that the riders get? I mean, I'm assuming some of the people are going to be tourists or maybe foreign students at Trinity that aren't maybe super familiar with the road and the laws and how that works. So can you talk a little bit about the public safety initiative around the launch of the app?
Sure. Every time when you sign up, you get a full user agreement as well as the user FAQ. UBicycle comes into a community and we do education at events, at local events, at Township to make sure that people are aware of the program and cycling safety. One thing we do in Victoria very successfully is we work with community centers, we work with school, we offer free tours to just educate users and tourists on the potential, where the cycling infrastructures are and how to cycle safely around your community. So we're not just a regular rental company.
Good, because I think that component is different depending on the location, different road safety rules, and just acknowledgement of challenges around terrain. Like if they were to take the bike on Fort to Fort, it's probably okay on that type of trail, but maybe other environments it's not very suited for. So having that information available. Is there a minimum age requirement for people who can rent?
Yeah, so it's 18 and above.
Oh, it is.
Yes. So, there's no way that we can stop parents for, giving them parental approval for renting these bikes, but the usual user agreement require you to be 18 and above.
It's membership based, right? You said you could buy a pass, so like an annual pass or pay as you go, like a cell phone. Is that?
The price structure is we're flat rate for $1 per certain minutes. You can do it either as pay as you go, or you can buy an annual pass, which give you unlimited ride for the whole year. But there's no membership fee, so you just need to set up an account with us. Yeah.
And then choose whatever you want to do, your pay as you go or your membership fee. Well, I mean, I have lots and lots of questions, but anyhow, thanks for the delegation, and I'm super supportive, so hopefully we can figure out a way to find a solution here.
Thank you.
Councillor Fox.
Yes, thanks for coming. This is sort of exciting, actually, sort of moving into the 21st century. So I just wanted to talk quickly about U-Bike. How big is U-Bike right now?
Great. So U-Bike has been around since September 2017. I'm sorry, July 2017. We've launched in Victoria at the end with September 2017. We're a startup that's female founded, female ran. We are all graduates from Simon Fraser University, so we founded this together as a team. And we currently operate about 500 bicycles, a fleet of 500 at base on Vancouver Island. We occupy 7 municipalities and 3 campuses.
So this would be your first venture on this side of the Georgia Strait?
No. Fortunately, we are launching in the summer in Lower Mainland. You'll probably hear some news or press around us in the coming weeks or no later than next month. So you'll be part of the coalition of Lower Mainland who's joining Bike Share or Smart Bike Shares.
So I had my first example watching this rebalancing thing. So I had to stay at my brother-in-law's place, and he lives in the West End, and I guess they rebalance about 1 o'clock in the morning. Is that what you do? You have a big van and you take some bikes from here and put them there, and then when the people wake up in the morning, they can take them from there and go back there. Is that what happens with rebalancing?
Yeah, essentially that's what happens. We do have a real-time monitoring system of where our bikes' locations are. Again, these bikes are, we monitor the location through GPS system, so we know where they are, where they're located, so our team using the live information on our backend system will be able to figure out where to bring things to. And we're very data-driven, meaning we analyze our usage data on a daily basis to figure out where are the usage Ks are, where are the high demands area are, and then we bring them from one place to another. Sometimes we use vehicles, sometimes we don't. In Victoria, City of Victoria, we haven't been able, we don't really need a vehicle for a very long time. So that really just depends on the size of the fleet and the demand.
Okay, and this one's for you, Gareth. Virtual parking spots in Fort Langley, which is absolutely stressed to the max of parking for cars. How do we see virtual parking spots working in Fort Langley so they don't compromise any car parking spots?
We haven't really talked to staff too specifically about locations. Some of the ones that we're thinking of right off the get-go are the Bedford Plaza against the fence line down there. So there are options that do not interfere with car parking. They are separate options. It's a separate parking mechanism.
Is the Bedford Landing the one where Trinity Western has that sort of study?
So that's one general location. We haven't got into the specifics yet. That would be something that we'd look to work with staff on where appropriate locations might be. But we would imagine one definitely at that end of town, perhaps down where Lalem is, or outside Trinity Western House where there is some open space and a possibility for parking. But we would look to staff to provide us with some suggestions there. And it could be a public-private partnership in terms of where these bikes are parked as well, too. They could be parked on private property.
Okay, thank you.
Councilor Whitmarsh?
Wow, this is awesome. Recreation and technology coming together. I love it. It's really exciting. My question is around what you talked about parking and the virtual parking. Is that the primary thing that you would need from the township, is those locations? Or is there other things that you would need from the township to make this happen?
I think that's a question for you like to discuss with staff and really determine what we mean. There might be bylaw considerations. There might be business license considerations. We're really looking to staff to help us out with that. In terms of the funds involved with getting it started, it varies greatly depending on how you want to launch, how many bikes. But yeah, we're looking for direction from staff and from you on how to deal with the specifics of launching this.
Right, and how many bikes are you anticipating starting with in this project?
So again, that would be in conversation with staff, but probably no more than 100 to launch the program. And again, that would be spread between 3 different stations in Fort Langley and at Trinity Western as well. So you would never have a glut of 100 bikes at one location. One thing that Angel didn't mention, so in addition to physically relocating these bikes, at the end of the day, if there's a glut, they can also incentivize within the app to end your rental at a certain location. So if we find that one location in Fort Langley doesn't have any bikes, then they can, through the app, incentivize people to end their rental at that location. So make sure that the distribution is not a major issue. I know there's some photos around on social media about big piles of bikes. I think in China this one was. That's not an issue. That can be dealt with through the technology.
Right, thank you.
Councillor Arneson.
Yes, thank you very much for coming today. With a little levity, I'd like to suggest you have an incentivization, including ice cream for people that bring their bicycle back, because that certainly would do it for me. I won't say what flavor, any will do. Thank you so much for putting this together. I really think that the council sounds like we're very supportive of it, and I know you've done a lot of due diligence in looking into all different aspects, so I very much appreciate that. So is it correct to call this a dockless system? Is that the kind of technology that we have? Okay, so you don't, as you said, we don't need any racks or anything like that. I think all my other...
Arneson,
sorry.
Just to clarify, racks are not required, but they are something that we would definitely be pushing for in Fort Langley, for sure.
Okay, and also because, as you mentioned, you could put other bicycles in there, which is a great benefit to other bicycle riders to be able to set their
absolutely, and it does keep the
there.
sidewalk more organized as well, too. So it's not required, but it is something that in Fort Langley we would heavily recommend.
Right, that's a good idea. I think the rest of my questions actually Councillor Fox covered. It was about the relocation of the bicycles and also where the virtual zone would be, but that's to be determined. I did have a question that struck me, but I assume it's internal to the program, about any kind of insurance. Is that all covered under the basis of your agreement, your licensing agreement?
Yeah, so we actually have third-party liability insurance as part of the program, and then we can add Langley as an addition to that. Yeah, so everybody is covered under a third-party liability program of $5 million.
Okay, thank you very much.
Councillor Richter.
Yeah, I think it's a great idea. My question is about money. Are you going to need any money from the township?
I think initially we were corresponding a little bit over email. I think there was a dollar figure in mind, but I think what we've decided is we really want to work with staff and come up with a program that we can launch successfully and grow. So right now, I'm going to say that there isn't at this point. It is very affordable. To give just an example, to launch 100 bikes today would be under $30,000, and over half of that is in membership fees that could be recuperated. So it is extremely affordable, but the price does fluctuate based on what kind of system we want to run, how many bikes, how many virtual zones. So we would be, again, working with staff to determine the best way to launch.
So you're not looking for us to buy the bikes?
No.
Okay.
No. We really are looking for a partnership, as much as, I'm here representing Fort Langley and, the virtues, and this is where we want to start it. Labonte is almost done. LEC would be another great location. Carvalth Exchange. This really could be, Willowbrook. This could be a real way to connect our communities without the use of cars.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fox.
You just nailed it. Labonte's just about done. Cycling lane. Town Centre, Willoughby Town Centre, LEC. Once Labonte's open, I can see Trinity Western students habiting basement suites, whatever, up in that area. Then moving to down into the Quanlan campus, down and so on and so forth. But I really think that it's good that you've got a vision to start small, focused, functional, but expand. And I think that you've really hit the nail on the head, and you beat me to the comment there, so thanks very much. But the Willoughby Town Centre, with Labonte opening up, I think even into Walnut Grove for the university network, it could be really effective. So thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. No further questions. Thank you very much for your presentation.
Thank you very much.
Very informative. And congratulations on your business venture.
Yeah.
So while people are leaving, we're going to get a report on the new Aldergrove Credit Union Community Center you may want to stay for. It's just saying. Mr. Winslade is going to enlighten us on the progress to date and what's happening on Friday.
Thank you, Your Worship. I was going to ask for a show of hands how many people came to support me, but I'm afraid 168 are not.
Oh, there's one there. As they walk out.
So thanks, Your Worship and members of council. I want to provide an update today on where we're at, also a reminder of where we've been, because as we head to an exciting time here starting on Friday, there'll be numbers of questions and information desired and that. So a little bit of education, a little bit of updates, some pictures, and then I do actually have a few people hopefully here supporting me who are going to give a little bit of an update on the operations of the facility. So here's our timeline. Actually starts a little bit before this. Council will remember in January, I think, of 2015, Council had some workshops, identified kind of our 5 priorities for this term, and to give, I guess, yourselves and staff a little pat on the back. I think this is actually number 5 in terms of getting it done. But we had the Brookswood-Fernridge plan, the Latimer plan, 208th Street widening, 216th interchange, and this project as priorities. So kind of an exciting time to be standing up here and talking about this. We officially announced the project in June of 15. Alder Grove Credit Union came on board. Some federal funding, more than some, a good chunk of federal funding in early 2017. And as council knows, we were about 4 or 5 months late actually starting construction. When you're out there on site on Friday and meet the great team we've had from Graham Construction, they'll probably remind you that we never gave them any time back when we took that time away, but they've done a good job. Our co-op came on board and heading towards this Friday, June 29th, having a ceremony. I'm sure you all have fond memories of this. That's actually our federal funding announcement. That's actually the real groundbreaking there when we actually got started about a month later. Just some early construction photos, only because it helps remind us how much we've been through. I'm going to highlight, these are actually original slides from when we first announced the project, anywhere that has a quote. So you're going to see some of our goals, and I just want to reinforce that for people listening, also for Mayor and Council and for staff. Kind of why did we do this project and where and what's included. So centralizing our recreation office offerings and municipal resources in East Langley. You can see in the middle of the blue dashes there, we are right in the middle of our developed Alder Grove area, so that's fantastic. Great for a lot of people interested in walking and biking, actually, interestingly, to the facility as I was listening to that presentation. That's an early plan, and we've pretty much stuck to it. Some minor revisions and different things, but pretty much stuck to it as we've gone. So the Alder Grove Credit Union Community Center indoor facility, that's the outside. It's a bit of a virtual tour as we go through as well. So that's the main entry to the building under that canopy. When you come in to the left, there's stairs and an elevator that go up to the second floor. And if you go to the arena, you go left. If you decide you want to go to the front counter or to the pool change rooms, this is just from the same spot, but looking to the right. So that's our reception desk. I put the elevator in just to let council know there's some questions about accessibility. So the entire indoor facility is accessible via the elevator, the stairs. Replacing the Alder Grove outdoor pool and enhancing our year-round aquatic opportunities. So there's a picture of our existing outdoor pool. Quick update while I'm on this slide. Staff, Al Neufeld and the staff are working away at that project, so filling in the pool. We've been through a public process in terms of redesigning, expanding the free spray park that will be there. And the first phase of that's expected to be open in mid-August, actually, this summer. And there'll be a phase 2 next year that we'll have to budget for as part of our capital budget in 2019. But that project is well underway. Just a reminder for council some of the things we added. So partway through the early stages, we added a canopy cover for the project. That's a picture of it. It's a DLT product. It looks spectacular when you're there. It's going to be a great cover for the facility. We also added a deep end with diving boards. So there you see the 1 meter and the 3 meter diving boards. The depth in the background there, you can see the acoustic fence that actually goes around the perimeter of the site. So between 8 and 10 feet high, all the way around, made out of wood and has acoustic properties to help with that. And this is me braving the 3 meter diving board for a photo, but you see what it's like from on the 3 meter diving board there. So essentially the pool right in front of us, closest to us, the 6-lane, 25 meter pool is what's replacing our existing Alder Grove outdoor pool from that point of view. Highlighted a few things as I went through. These are the pool change rooms you'd come in and out of. But if you look at the top of that picture, kind of in the orange panels there, you see the heaters. So we've got heaters all along the outside of the deck there. That's the distance from the change room to the water. Just a lot of people say, how far am I going to have to run, in the winter months, etc. So it's only actually a few steps. And yeah, exactly. And this doesn't look exciting at all, but it's the best representation I had on short notice. This is actually the kind of the control point of the ice melt system we have in the pool deck. So just as a reminder, around the entire pool deck, we have a ice melt system frost-free. It'll give a little bit of heat, but it'll keep it safe, even if you do happen to pick up a little bit of speed and run. So that's just the controller for that. Replacing the Aldergrove Community Arena. Reducing our future infrastructure maintenance costs, obviously a big part of the project. Some early photos here as we went through. That's what Councillor Long lovingly referred to as the warehouse for a little while. We've upgraded that look. These pictures are all from the last couple of weeks, so some is a little bit further along and some is current as of this weekend. But that's the inside of the arena, just to give you a bit of a sense. All LED lighting, it's extremely bright, great upgrade. The few people that have seen it that are arena users are extremely excited and happy. This picture shows a few things. We've got a combination of benches and seats based on public feedback. We actually originally had all seats, like chairs, but the users of the existing arena felt it was really important to maintain some benches. I think it's easier for kids to kind of spread out and play and siblings and that. So we've kept two sections of those. We've kind of taken what we deem to be, based on feedback, the best of the existing Aldergrove Arena and tried to bring it into modern times in our new facilities. So that is one example. The heaters that you see going across the top of that picture there up in the ceiling is another example. And although probably not actually required in a modern arena, people were adamant they still wanted to have their heaters, so we put those in place. The warm room to be able to view, so you don't actually have to go into the cold area of the arena. So across the entire south end, we've got this warm lobby that'll have a standing drink rail to have your coffee on, etc., as you watch those early morning practices. And minor detail, but just wanted to highlight it. If you look at the yellow boards there, and I know this isn't probably going to show up on the screen, but if you look at the bottom part, it does show. You can see there's this is a hard plastic, and this is actually what's called a soft cap, and it's actually an NHL standard that's been developed that helps prevent concussions and provides a real safe feature. So I could be up here all day telling you all the little things we've done, but that was just a really good example of something that wasn't in the existing arena that now is going to be in the new arena as we go forward. Enhancing our year-round recreation and fitness opportunities, as much as those pictures aren't from our existing Aldergrove facility. So as much as staff have tried to provide some opportunities at the Aldergrove Kinsman Community Center, they have been lacking, I guess. That's a picture of the fitness center, so treadmills, stair climbers, weights, etc. Those windows look out over the competition pool and under the canopy deck. It's a picture of the wood-sprung floor, the studio, so fitness studio, so yoga, tai chi, aerobics, children's dance, all those types of programs can be held in there. It's a great room. And that's the current site office, but that's actually the multi-purpose room for the facility. So you can see it has both south and west-facing windows. So once that's vacated, that's used for all kinds of programming, meetings, preschool programs, children's activities, group functions, birthday parties, whatever you want to rent it for. So it's a great space up there. A big one that I think is really important for us as a township is revitalizing the Aldergrove core. So you'll all know we did the Aldergrove core plan maybe 7-8 years ago or so. And essentially this is the first significant or possibly even the first development that's happened as a result of it. If you're on the Fraser Highway side, you'll see pavers just as one little small sign, but we've taken all the standards that are in that Aldergrove core plan and implemented them on the Fraser Highway side. But creating a destination and attracting people to visit Aldergrove is really, really important. And we've seen a bit of a roller coaster of emotions, I guess, as we've gone through this project, from wasn't what we wanted to this is too good because now people are all going to drive into town, where are they all going to park, and everything in between. So I just, the elephant in the room sometimes, so to speak, is parking. We do have enough parking there to address what I'll just call our day-to-day year-round needs. So fitness center, arena, swimming laps, all that type of thing, swimming lessons. What we are not going to have right on site, honestly, is when there's 1,200, 1,500 people in the water park. We probably couldn't build enough parking to actually accommodate all that. But it's somewhat of a strategy, I guess, on purpose, and it's going to take a little bit of time to play out. But as many of you know, and there's some correspondence actually in our distribution package today, that Aldergrove core, as it hopefully redevelops, becomes part of this destination where people will park, go to a restaurant, visit a store, whatever, and then come to our facility, or vice versa, go to the facility first, go through that downtown core. That's going to take a little bit of time. But we do have a parking plan in the meantime. So there's just over 100 parking stalls on site. That's a picture of the west-facing view of it, and that's kind of from the south side. When you actually go there, it is a fair amount of parking. We've also provided street parking. I've got a photo later on, you'll see, but you can see it in the bottom part of that picture beside the sidewalk. We've actually designated kind of the area, but there's parking on both sides of the street all the way through that snaked section of the road. And we've worked cooperatively with the school district and high school for the really busy days where we're actually reconfiguring and putting some gates at the high school. Well, that can be our overflow parking if people, choose to park there. It's about 400 meters, which is more than reasonable when you consider, say, if you go to the Langley Event Center, if you're out in the far part of the parking lot, it's actually a similar type scenario. So you may not feel like it because you're going through a bit of a neighborhood, but we're pretty confident in terms of the parking. We've got the community police office there, the mall, the lane out back, et cetera, and our staff are working hard with all of our partners in the neighborhood to try to address that. Sustainable facility practice. So leadership of sustainable facility practices. This is, again, the original slide, and as you'll see when I go through, we actually have a lot of investigate, possible, review words up there because we weren't sure, but we've actually done all of it. So I've got a few examples as we go. This is a picture of it's about maybe a half of the mechanical room basement. And the reason I put it here is we had a lot of talk about, well, can't you just put walls on and move forward and we'll be happy? And, I talked a lot about it's not quite that easy, like the mechanical room grows in size and the equipment changes and everything. This is an example. I just want to use this because I had the picture of how much equipment and that is in there and how much is required. So again, this is actually, I'm standing up on the second level of the room. There's an entire upper floor, and then this is actually just a portion of the basement as much as I could capture on my iPhone. But a lot of detailed equipment. These are just the pool filters, and I throw these in just because I'm sure no one ever looks at pool filters generally. So that's generally what they look like. We've got good ones. Our staff are happy with them. Water efficient fixtures. We have the most exciting picture in the entire slideshow right there, I'm sure. But you can see they're self-flush, self-water regulating. We have high efficiency boilers everywhere where we've done that. Water reuse is a really interesting one. Again, not an exciting picture, but where we've actually done, you can't get a picture of this, I guess, technically. This is our rainwater harvesting treatment equipment. So all the rainwater that's coming off of the roof of the facility, for example, off the canopy, we're capturing it. It all runs down into a centralized area. It gets treated and then put back into the facility for flushing all of the urinals and toilets and anything that's gray water in the facility. So water reuse has been a really big part of the project, even though nobody will ever see it. It is there. So this is one opportunity I have to show you a picture and talk about that. Heat recovery and reuse. We talked a lot about these are the heat exchangers. So taking that waste energy from the refrigeration plant, using it to heat the pool water. So we have done that. That waste energy, the waste heat also melts the ice from the Zamboni. So Aldergrove, I'm sorry to disappoint some of the people that like the snowball fights in the winter, but we'll no longer have big piles of snow outside of the arena. They all go into a pit. It's melted by the waste energy, filtered, and then the yucky stuff at the bottom is taken out once or twice a year. And we've done some of the preheating of domestic water and the change room floors as well. So that waste energy is a great saver of dollars. We had investigate solar panels. We've done them, so unfortunately you can't really see these from the ground, but these are up where the canopy joins the roof of the facility. So we have 6 of them. You can see 5 in that picture, but there's 6 of them there, and we've actually allowed for future expansion of 6 more, so we can do up to 12. But we've done 6 as part of this project. That's the hot water tank that's basically fed from that solar collection. This is kind of neat. We actually will have storyboards on location that people will be able to read about this, but reusing materials from the existing school. So the right side of that picture is actually brick from the original Aldergrove Elementary School that we salvaged and cleaned with some help from the Heritage Society out in Aldergrove. On the left outside the window is fake brick. It's current brick, I guess is what it is, but heritage brick on the inside there, so that's kind of neat where it's protected. If any of you have been down Fraser Highway in the last few days, those are going up facing north, facing Fraser Highway, and those are actually glue lamps that were taken from the old elementary school, refinished, resanded, and purposed to be an architectural feature on the outside of the building. And that's the skate lobby. Those are the cubbies where you put your shoes. But on top of those cubbies will actually be wood from the original school as well. So when you're sitting and putting on your skates, you're going to be sitting on some of the wood that we saved from the old Aldergrove Elementary School. So 3 examples what we did. Didn't do pictures of everything, but bioswales, enhanced recycling, LED lighting I mentioned. And we do have 2 vehicle rechargers with dual head each. So 4 different places to do vehicle recharging on site. Transportation and pedestrian infrastructure, I think probably most people have been out there have seen this, but you get a shot. That's looking north on 270th. At the end of that, the intersection of Fraser Highway, the traffic light was just activated this past weekend, so it's actually active. And on the opposite end of this snake, where it hits 29th Avenue, is a raised crosswalk, so another crossing for students and people walking in the area. Another goal, facility and attraction for all ages. You'll see we've got all different age groups, organized and unorganized users. I think we've achieved that well. This is just a signage from the Otter Co-op outdoor experience area. Try to flip through these quickly, some of the construction photos. You'll see names now as I go through. So I've had to train myself as well, but as a staff group and that we've named all the different places. The things that start with Pacific are actually the things that are year round. So no one, again, will know that, but it's easy as a staff tool. So Pacific Plunge is the competition pool. It's really hard to tell how deep it is now that the water's in. So I just threw in a slide there to show you the depth of the deep end. That's what it looks like now. You see we have the starting blocks. The lane ropes are in there. The starting blocks will only be there for competition. They won't be there on kind of a daily basis. But we have our 6-lane, 25-meter pool, and the people that were involved and kind of pushing for a swim club originally are pretty excited. They've seen it, not even with the lane rope and that, but they're really excited. So I think we've done a great job there. Pacific Lagoon, which we used to call the leisure pool. So that picture probably doesn't really do it justice, but 0.7 meters up to 1.1 meters, warmer water, has the ramp that's on the top part of the picture there. You can just see the railing from it that goes all the way down from where you come out of those change room doors I showed you. You essentially just turn to the right and the ramp starts there for getting in. Pacific Cove is the hot tub. I know a lot of discussion about this. Without going into great detail, our capacity for the site isn't based on per person per piece of equipment necessarily. It's a really complicated formula based on surface water exiting and washrooms essentially. So this number towards the calculation I think is actually 72, somewhere over 70. However, I think we've been saying kind of 30-ish for comfort level. But on the weekend when we were there was upwards of 60 or 65 guards all doing their training, and they all were in here at the same time. And a few of them were friendlier than others probably, but they still were spaced a little bit. So it's a really good size hot tub. A few things we added with the federal funding, just as I highlight, but one is the sauna. So that's a picture of the sauna room there, accessed from the pool deck. And we added the steam room. So these are things that were going to be future, but that we've included in the project now. So that now has been cleaned. It looks much whiter. The water slides, which are called the roller soakers, are all in place. This was the last thing. We've gone through quite the certification process and permitting and inspections and the like. This was the last thing that we were waiting for this afternoon, so we're happy to report we're all good. Technical Safety BC, these are actually deemed to be an amusement ride, so we had to get an amusement attractions license, so we've got that. But those are the roller soakers, 1 body slide and 2 tube slides. The blue is the body slide, and you can see up top there the aqualucent, translucent part that you can see body forms but not make out anything too specific as they go through there. So it's kind of a neat experience. And then the red is a tube slide enclosed, but those different color stripes you see, light comes through in different ways, and so it gives it a different feel as you go through those slides. Canyon Creek is our current channel. That's an early picture. The big square that you see there, kind of on the left by the green tractor, is just interesting because, again, you'll never see that again. That's buried. But that's one of the surge tanks. That's actually for the water slides. But there's a lot of stuff in the ground that people don't see. But you can see Canyon Creek in the background there. That's a relatively current picture of it. Looks pretty inviting. And then all around the creek are different water features. You can see a few of them are turned on there. But there's dumping buckets and water curtains and sprayers and that as you go around to keep it kind of interactive. Breaker Bay is our tidal pool. I like that picture because of the biggest pumper of concrete I've ever seen. But that's the construction of the tidal pool. That's what it looks like today. I think they're in the process, or may even be finished the video screen now. But you see on the wall there, the black is the video screen. 6 different types of waves that come from kind of gentle up to what they call double diamond that are fun and exciting. The big top is our aquaplay structure. And just a reminder, we worked quite closely with Whitewater Industries, which is based out of Kelowna and Richmond. Their worldwide headquarters are actually here. So we got to actually see it as it went through the manufacturing process. Kind of neat. That's our popcorn dumping bucket. Rob, who's in that picture, our project manager, is probably 6'5". So you get a bit of sense how big that dumping bucket is, even though when you see it up there, it doesn't look that big. So it gives you a bit of a sense of the scale of that play structure. So that's the front, and that's kind of the back side. So you can see there's individual slides again for younger children. And then all around the outside of this are different smaller spray features and activities. Something else that we added with the federal funding is what we've called Lighthouse Lookup on top. But it's actually a south change room building. So we added a lifeguard room, first aid, and then individual washrooms and change rooms all across the south side of the park. So when you're down there, which is more of a younger family area, you don't have to go all the way up to the building just to go to the washroom and then come all the way back. We've got some nice and close, which is great. And then we took advantage of the second floor there, and actually behind that glass rail, you can see we've added a deck. So capacity up there, this is one area where it is a true capacity. Our capacity is 60. And there you can see they're just finishing it. That's a picture from Friday. But it'll be a deck space that can be rented for birthday parties, for meetings, for soccer party, end of the year functions, whatever it's going to be. I'm sure it's going to be a really popular spot. Pacific Park is our dry playground. That's the early sketch. I included that because I wasn't actually sure we were going to have parts of the playground or not, but I'm happy to report they showed up last week. This actually won't be certified and usable this Friday because we're still waiting for some of the safety pieces, but that is on site. You can see it. It's that fence that you see there, I think, is a 6-foot-high fence, so it gives you a bit of a sense of the scale behind it. It's going to be a great playground, great destination. And just as a reminder, the competition pool, leisure pool, hot tub, and playground, dry playground, are all going to be open year-round. When there's an admission being charged for the water park, the dry playground is a part of that admission. But in the time of the year where the water park is not open and it's just the pools, then this will be free admission. So we actually have a double gate system, so people will be able to use this for free for a good portion of the year as well. And the last thing that we added, calling it Beachside Green, otherwise known as a grass park. But just recently started on this, and it'll probably be grass by Friday, but we're going to have to allow a grow-in period, so it'll be there, you can see it, but it'll probably be sometime in midsummer when we actually open that space up. So that's mostly just passive area for seating, for picnicking, eventually we'll add some benches and different eating areas. So this is kind of my last thing, and I guess the main highlight and thing to remember as we talk to the public on that. But we really want this facility to complement all of our other recreation facilities. We have some great aquatic facilities, we have some great parks, we have some great event facilities, and this facility is really to complement those in our overall township recreation system. We generally don't duplicate facilities between communities that are of a more kind of municipal level. So complementing our outstanding variety of existing facilities, and I think this has done that. So Aldergrove Credit Union Community Center, that's the signage on the outside. And that's kind of just a shot from up on the second floor. I'm just going to talk briefly about schedule, and then Rob's here somewhere. All right, good. Then I'm going to turn it over to Rob. He's going to talk just quickly about operations. But this has been our schedule for quite a while, so we're happy to have been able to maintain it. The Otter Co-op Outdoor Experience Water Park, we're going to have a ceremony this Friday, June 29th at 11 a.m. And anyone from the public's invited to attend the ceremony. Following the ceremony for about a 2-week period, Rob will talk a little bit more about it, we're going to be doing our test swims that will be actually open to the public as well, but by registration as opposed to just showing up that day. So controlling the numbers and the safety aspect and allowing our staff to do the training that's required, et cetera, before we kind of get into a full operation. So that's going to start the 29th. The arena, we've scheduled for Saturday, August 18th. We're going to do a parade behind the old Zamboni, or the Zamboni, from the old arena to the new arena, and all the user groups will be on board, those that are in town. So that'll be the first day of ice, actually, so that's why we're kind of waiting till that day. So lacrosse and ball hockey and dry floor uses are just finishing up in the existing arena, and then we'll have ice in the new arena starting August 18th. And then our fitness facility, multi-purpose rooms, the studio upstairs will start after Labor Day, September 4th, which is kind of a traditional start of recreation programs and opportunities. One thing I don't have on here is then our goal is sometime mid-September, probably the second or third weekend in September. Then we're going to do a public open house where it'll be kind of a free day and people can come see the entire thing. So if they've only been there for the water park or they only came for the arena, whatever, just give them one good opportunity to see the whole building all together. So Rob gets one slide. So I think you've probably all met Rob Stair, but Rob's the manager, is going to be responsible for the facility under the direction of Christine Blair in our Parks and Recreation Division. So he's going to talk a little bit about the operations, and then if you have any questions, we'll both be up here.
Thank you for having me, Mayor and Council. So just want to talk a bit about, as Jason said, our plan is, as we do the ribbon cutting this coming Friday, that we're going to be gradually opening the facility to the patrons. And part of that is we look back on Walnut Grove opening. Typically that cycle has been more of a many months cycle, not a very short 2-week cycle. So this is a very concentrated time, a lot of energy going into this last 2 weeks and also these upcoming 2 weeks. So yeah, very exciting time. It just was out there today with technical safety and getting those approvals, and so lots going on. Our plan is to start with groups of 200 to 300 in the first set of number of days, and then grow from there with kind of set number of hours. So we're going to have kind of 3-hour blocks. We're going to be able to cycle through with registered users and do evaluations with staff, get feedback from staff, get feedback from also the users, and anything from just doing evacuations of what the site looks like. So we just started doing training this last week. We had, as Jason mentioned, a group out there this last Saturday of staff, and about 60 to 80 staff on site there doing training, and we're continuing on with that this week, and in-service training coming up this Thursday, I think Wednesday and Thursday. So yeah, lots going on. And the first 2 weeks, for the first week, we're hoping to release that within the next day or so. All the test swims where members of the public can register online through and then eventually to our sites. And then also we'll be expecting some people walking up, wondering if they can get in, and also doing some of that through that, but limiting how many people are in the park at a time so we really can be up to speed and doing a gradual opening. So Yeah, I think one of the things we've noticed already, just on Saturday, we had lots of public walking up and really interested and really excited to be there. And some walking onto the park, we're like, hey, you can't be here. So lots of excitement about the park. And also a lot of just people wondering when different parts are opening. And as Jason mentioned, we've been holding true to the different opening times of different areas. So we really just have the administration area, the change rooms, and the pools and water park are going to be opening to start. So just a phased opening like that, so we can make sure we've got everything in focus. What other pieces?
Good.
Yeah.
That's good. We might have a few questions.
Yeah.
Sure. One kind of funny thing that happened, there's an awful lot of excitement. People can't wait. I think I've mentioned to council before, usually when we do these facilities, nobody knows what's going on inside because we can just keep the doors closed and do our training and do our soft openings and people kind of slowly hear. Here we're fully exposed and everyone can see every single, so as soon as you turn on, say that dumping bucket, when they started doing, they have to adjust all the filters and the flow rates and everything. As soon as they turned it on, people are running to the fences, which is great, it's exciting, but it puts a lot of pressure on Rob and the staff. I spent on Saturday, I got stuck there, but I spent about an hour probably just at the fence, just answering people's questions because they were all coming and wanting to know what's happening and they're all excited. So it's really, it's great. The funny thing that happened is our staff are trying to get organized and planned and put our first set of swim lessons in the system. And I guess, I don't know how it works these days, but they were live because the next thing we knew, there were 75 people registered for swim lessons for the first 2 weeks. So it's great that the excitement is there. Rob didn't mention that, but we are starting swim lessons actually on next Monday, I guess, on July the 2nd. So there is a lesson set happening as well. So we are open fully for the public, but just trying to do it in a controlled manner while our staff get more comfortable. I shouldn't tell tales out of school, but the first thing that happened at staff training that I saw, and they turned on the current channel. There's a bunch of different flow rates, but the flow was going. So what they had is a bunch of guards who were just in there, hey, just go and have fun, and then some guards on the deck, and then someone's supposed to, pretend that, they've lost consciousness or whatever. So someone goes down, the whistle goes, they hit the stop. The guard jumped in, and if Rob's the person, he's floating this way. The guard jumps in. By the time it hits the water, the guy's around the corner. So the very first thing they learned is, hey, you got to go a couple steps forward, jump in ahead of the person, and then kind of catch them, right? So that's the kind of training that's so important. We've never done anything like this, right? Actually, municipally, there isn't anything like this across Canada. So for a lot of our guards, it's all new. It's very different. It's going to take some time. So that's part of why we want to start with kind of 200 and 300, 500, 800, and work our way up to what our capacity is going to be. So that's there. And I should just quickly acknowledge Harb, who I know is up there. Harb's been with me since the start of this project. I think it's been a good 6 months since anyone's threatened to take us outside and beat us up for not giving them what they wanted. But Harb's been through a lot with me on this project, and so I'll just acknowledge that he's here. And Rob and the team that now are in place have been fantastic over these last few months. So I think we're in pretty good shape to get going as of Friday. So if there's any questions, we'd be happy to answer them.
There you got a round of applause.
There we go.
There you go.
From our 168 people.
That's right. I just want to thank you, Jason and Rob and Harb and all the team, the Township Langley team, and the contractors that were involved to bring this vision to reality. It's an amazing project, and the fact that this council was able to approve the construction way back in 2015. And actually be there to see the completion within the term. I know you worked very hard to make that happen, and it's great to see. And I really want to thank you personally, and I know on behalf of council, each member of council, I'm sure will say the same thing. But you did an outstanding job getting this on track, and I know the time lost when we were working through with the federal government to get that very, very important piece of that grant money. We did have to wait to make sure we had all of our I's dotted and our T's crossed to get that money, and that had to wait for the groundbreaking for that to happen. But in spite of that, it still brought it to us on schedule. So I just want to thank you very much for all of that.
Thank you.
And there are a few questions from Councillor comments. Councillor Fox.
Yeah, thank you. And I have to echo those comments to you, Mr. Winsley, to Harb, to Rob. I mean, people ask me, and I'll say this to the audience, people ask me what you think about a 4-year term. on council, and one of the things that I always respond to, 4-year terms are great for planning. And I think this is a very, very sound example of that, where the council actually, at the beginning of the term, identified the 5 priorities. This was one of the 5 priorities, and we were able to see it through into completion, which we'll do this Friday, which is incredibly exciting. I just want to know, maybe either through yourself, Mr. Winslade, or through Mr. Stair, what's staff's response been? Like, you worked with these people. I mean, these are lifeguards that come, I'm sure, either they're new employees or they're employees that worked at either Walnut Grove or at Blair. What's the response been?
I'll let Rob speak about the guards maybe, but I think just generally, I'd be remiss not acknowledging I guess all of our township staff, because there's no division that hasn't touched this project. So there's a lot of people that we'll get to thanking later on, but to acknowledge that it's a real team effort. And I think everyone who's been involved is extremely excited. You know, when people go out there and see it for the first time, generally their first reaction is, oh, wow, like I had no idea it was like this. And I know I joke about people not being in the audience, but I know there are some staff that are here or who are watching online because they're really interested to see it as well. But as far as the guards go, maybe Rob, you want to talk about it?
Yeah, I think the 2 words are wow and phenomenal. So I think it's, very well received. And it's only when you get drilled down a bit and they start to go, okay, how are we going to guard that? There's other discussions happening, but that's all the details, right? So yeah.
That's the uniqueness of the features that are here.
Yeah.
Which brings into play the whole context of, okay, this is something that's very different than what they've experienced before.
Super unique, yeah. And that's why we want to make sure we have the time to get trained up and ready to go. So.
Rob, while you're there, what do you expect on a summer day in terms of the number of employees that are employed in a project like this? Not as the construction phase. I'm talking operational phase here.
Yeah. So during the operational phase, we've developed a new classification. It's a rec facility attendant, and basically they're attendants that can help out with various parts of the park, customer service or hosts, and they can also help on parts where we don't need lifeguards. So we expect about 15 of those at various times of the day, depending on how busy it is. And then our guarding structure is, again, depending on how busy it is, in the 15 and maybe up to 25, depending how crazy busy it is, but in that range. And then we have clerical as well, and then maintenance staff. So all on site. There's a wide range of, depending on what's happening and the time of year, but anywhere really between the 40-ish range in a busy water park season and on up to the 60 range.
So it's going to have quite an employee base that's also significant.
Yeah, for sure.
One of the questions always is, okay, if the 60 employees are there and they all take all the parking spots, what's going to happen? So is there a strategy associated with that?
Yeah, they're not going to be in our parking lot, basically.
Okay, that's fine.
Or they're, if we are sensitive to late night parking, all that, and so we're got a plan in place if staff need help to get out to their parking spot, the buddy system and all that. So, but yeah, the plan is to allow the public primarily to be in our parking spaces at the front so they can get access. Yeah.
Thank you. One other thing, when we were at Halifax at FCM, Councillor Whitmarsh and I went on a tour, a recreational tour to a new recreation center that opened in September out in Dartmouth, and it was about a $42 million facility that was constructed, and our, plus or minus this particular facility is $42 million roughly. Comparators, they got 4 ice arenas in a concrete block, rectangle, and they had 1 meeting room and nothing else. $42 million. I look at this, I look at public engagement and participation and what this offers. For $42 million or thereabouts, plus or minus, this is going to be a phenomenal community asset that's going to be very, very, I think, well utilized by the public. Hopefully the public walk. That I know that's not, and this is to promote a walkable community. And the last thing is, from an ice perspective, I don't think there's going to be an arena, and I include Rogers Arena, that'll have better sight lines than this hockey arena will have, or lacrosse ball hockey arena. When the public get in to watch an activity, whether it's figure skating or otherwise, they will be absolutely blown away with the sight lines that will happen. And that includes the people on the walking track that's around it, all those elements that Mr. Winsley didn't even touch on, that are all part of the fitness component of this. So it's going to be phenomenal.
It is. That's one of the words, phenomenal.
Councillor Richter.
A really impressive job. Oh my goodness. And to see something like this go from an idea on paper to there's actually doors that we can walk through is amazing. I wanted to ask about, I've got a couple of questions. Capacity, peak capacity, particularly for the water park.
Yeah, great question. I will come back to that in a moment. Councillor Fox mentioned the walking track. I just want to talk about that because it's going to be another phenomenally well-used space. And then if it's okay, Councillor Richter, I'll come back to the capacity. At the Langley Event Centre, as many of you know, we do call it a walking surface. And it's because there's so much happening all around all the time, different events, different user groups, different things that it can be a little bit dangerous for people to be running and all of a sudden someone pops out with food or out of the banquet hall or whatever. So walking surface. So the one difference here is this is actually a lot more isolated. It is around the entire perimeter of the second floor of the arena. So we are actually calling it a running track. So Councillor Fox, thank you for using walking because it's taken me, I think, 9 years to get people saying walking for the LEC, but this will actually be a running track. It's the same 9+2 plastic material. It's actually going in place this week, but I know the community is extremely excited about that. There's a bit of a running club. Joanne Nicolata, who many of you know, her husband Dennis runs it, and so they're excited about being able to be inside and it's safer and all that kind of stuff. So that's important. I didn't touch on the change rooms and all those things that we've got, so I apologize. The capacity of the water park, just back to that, we are. There's a few different numbers, I guess, so it's hard to actually answer. We have a true capacity that we don't think we're ever going to actually reach, and that's based, as I mentioned, on water surface exiting bathrooms. We have a practical number, which is probably we're going to start around 1,200 people for the water park, and we could go as high as, I think we're just over 1,500, I think, in terms of where we think we'll probably hit. Big challenge is it might even vary at different times of the day because a family use of this facility, say during the daytime, is going to be very different than maybe what it transitions to at 7 o'clock on a Friday evening when it becomes a youth focus or when we do aquasize lessons, in the current channel with seniors or whatever it happens to be. So it's really going to fluctuate. But the real answer to your question is it'll likely be between 1,200 and 1,500 depending on the day and the session.
Okay. And so I know you talked about the transitioning on the first couple of weeks with set blocks of time for people to register and come and try it out for 3 or 4 hours. Are we going to need to have time limits?
Yes.
Because this is going to be quite a draw, and
Yeah.
families will come for the whole day, I would expect, right?
They probably would like to. So Rob's getting really good at looking at me and smiling and nodding, so I'm just going to answer the question rather than making him, because it's been a little bit of my direction here. We've experienced with W.C. Blair Recreation Center and now with Walnut Grove, but W.C. Blair has always tried to kind of be always open to anybody, no matter what you want to do. Aquasize, diving board, swimming links, therapy, non-therapy, everything. And at the end, everybody gets a little bit frustrated because not everything is compatible. And it's really hard once we've started that way to try to pull it back. So kind of my direction to our staff in terms of opening this facility is to try to be a little bit more I don't know what the right word is, but focused, I guess, in terms of what are our activities at those certain times of the day, and having kind of 3-hour blocks. And we don't know if 3 hours is exactly the right amount of time, but kind of blocks where different things can happen. So in a general sense, to answer your question, staff are going to be looking for feedback from the public. But we don't actually know here. To give you an example, at W.C. Blair Recreation Center, and I'm generalizing, but we have a later arriving crowd that likes to swim lengths because they tend to be a little older. So they get up in the morning, they have their routine, then they come to swim their lengths. It's still morning, but a little later, and then they go on with their day, and that's when all their friends come, etc. Walnut Grove, we have an extremely heavy population that wants to work out before they go to work, and work is often driving to Burnaby or Surrey or Vancouver or wherever. So really popular before work crowd. in Aldergrove here, we're going to offer lake swimming, but we're not really sure what time and how many people want to come for that in different times of the year. So a big part of Rob and Carrie and Nicole and all the staff's, their job is going to be to try to engage the public and find out what are they interested in, what do they actually want. You know, we've never had a fitness room before, so they've done a great job. It's actually pretty exciting when you see the fitness layout. It's unreal what they've done, but we don't really know, do people want free weights? Do they want the treadmills? Do they want the classes where they're instructed and that? So a lot of it's going to be based on feedback, but we're going to start with segments of sessions. So on a typical day, say the first few hours of the day will be swim lessons, like learn to swim, aquasize classes, paddle boarding, whatever, things that you actually register for and are there for a few hours. Then we'll likely have kind of a 3-hour, just a public swim, I guess session is the best way probably to call it, but just an open session. Then probably a bit of a break, just because from a guarding point of view, the number of hours and time on, time off, and that we'll have to have a little break session. Then we'll have kind of an afternoon, evening session that will take us through till, and again, we're not really sure what time, but I think right now you're looking at probably 9:30 being the latest. So that's kind of how the day breaks out. So we're not going to open first thing in the morning, stay all day, and go home. However, people will have that option. So they're going to be using wristbands. I don't want to complicate and take the whole afternoon meeting, but if you come in the morning and you buy your wristband for the first session, there is the opportunity to buy the wristband and stay for the next session. But it's going to be based on kind of segmented times until they get a feel for who's coming. Are they walking? Are they getting dropped off? Is it busloads of kids? Is it all families? Like, it's really hard to know what the demand is going to be. So that's a big part of Rob and staff's job, is to talk to the public, find out what they're interested in, try offering different programs and different things. You know, I think it's going to be great for therapy to be able to put the current channel on the lowest speed and walk against the water from a therapy point of view. I think that's great, but I don't know, maybe no one else in the public thinks that's a good thing, so it might not work. So a lot of that's going to be based on what people say and what they do. And these test swims gives us a chance to try that out, because they're actually doing different lengths and different times, and we've got one that's going to be a 6-hour session, for example, and a couple that are 3 hours. And so again, that's all based on, you know, we have a lot to learn. There's no template really to look at. So
now, what's the admission fee going to be?
So our admission fee for sure, anything that's we currently offer at other facilities, so lake swimming, just a general public swim, public skating, a fitness admission is the same as all of our other facilities. So if you can buy your 10 punch, your 20 punch, or your single admissions, use them at any of the facilities. So those activities are all going to be the exact same as our existing admission rates, which for an adult is $5.70-ish, $5.70 about, down to $2 or so for, I think, for a child, $2.70. Thanks. So that's the range. Now, the only reason I hesitate a little bit is I think there's going to be a lot of special events here. So, for example, one of the things staff are talking about is like a youth night, where it might be $10 and you get a hamburger combo, a movie, and a swim. And so there's going to be things that are a little bit different, again, outside of our admission rates, but the general admission rates are the same as all of our other facilities. Again, for those focus times. Again, another thing that's different, not many people go to Walnut Grove and stay there for more than an hour and a half or 2 hours. I don't know what an average public swim is, but probably an hour and a half or 2 hours. So again, this is a little bit different. So that's kind of the session. So I guess if you want to stay all day, you might want to multiply by 2, I guess, but same admission rates as our other facilities.
That's great. I've got to ask about the parking, particularly for the merchants in the mall beside.
Yep.
What are there arrangements going to be made to make sure that
So
the merchants will have parking available for their...
Yeah, so during the entire project, we've tried to be sensitive, and where we maybe weren't aware, we've been made aware when there was challenges. We had about a 1 month or 2 month period where the road was major construction. It took away all the road parking. That it was a challenge to try to keep people out of that parking lot as best we could. Going forward, what we've done, we've repainted all the lines just recently within the last week. We're putting up signs, fixed signs that actually designate more than half of that, it's probably 2/3, as tenant and guest parking only for the mall. And the number that we've done, we, over the course of this 2-year period, have monitored and taken pictures and kind of counted cars and tried to figure out what's the right number based on the number of people that visit those restaurants and businesses. And so we've taken that number and we've added a little bit just to be safe. So the majority of the parking that is there will be designated for mall tenants and their guests specifically. There's one corner closest to the entrance of the facility, which is about 15 stalls or so, that we're just going to treat more as facility parking. It's where the garbage cans are now, so no one's been using it. But we're actually relocating those and creating a new enclosure. And it'll be an ongoing thing, as it is, everywhere. I'm sure, parking, people take for granted sometimes the street parking in front of their house, that's my spot. There might be somebody there. The mall you talked about, the CPO, we're designating some of the CPO as kind of a safe staff area because it's out of the way. But maintaining their spots, I'm sure there's going to be the odd challenge with there. I'm pretty certain that some of the neighbors are going to charge a few bucks, like P&E style, for parking in their area. But it's going to be something for, again, for Rob and our staff. And they've tried really hard. Harb started this actually right when we announced the project. Just went and knocked on every single door in that whole neighborhood and introduced himself and said, "Give me a call." And I thank you, Harb, for doing that. Not me having to, but and Rob and his staff are starting to do that now as well. So get to know the people, and rather than it blowing up into a big issue, try to deal with things as they happen. So again, it's going to be interesting. I hope people do park in that downtown core and visit some of the businesses and get more eyes on the street, and it becomes just a busier area. We do know already, actually, from the last couple of weeks when we talked to all the people, looking through the fence and visiting us, almost all of them, I'd say 75%, 80% of them are actually walking, I think. So we kind of already know people are walking in the neighborhood, and they'll say, "Oh, I live on the other side by Betty Gilbert," or whatever. So we're hoping, again, not everyone's going to do it, but we're hoping a good percentage of people that come actually bike. We do have bike parking.
And that was my last question I wanted to ask. I know you've got the bike lanes on the road that goes up on the side of the pool, but Fraser Highway right in front of the pool narrows down to one car lane. Are bikes allowed to go in there? Because there's no...
Yeah, I think I did see a memo about that. It goes on the sidewalk there, correct? Yeah. So in the temporary solution, the bikes stay on the sidewalk, not on the road. Yeah, so Fraser Highway primarily.
Okay. Thank you, Councillor Qualley. And just be aware of the time. We have a big agenda and a few more questions to go. So, Councillor Qualley.
I'm scheduled for 10 minutes. I'm right on schedule.
So you are, but...
Thanks for the presentation today. I don't think WOW and Phenomenal quite cover it. It's pretty amazing. It sort of feels a bit like Christmas, to be honest. I'm not sure I'm going to be able to sleep for the next couple of days. Excited about actually getting to see it in person. I really think this is going to be a flagship facility for Aldergrove and a world-class facility that we can all be really proud of, and kind of like the way the LEC highlights the amazing work we do here in the township up in Willoughby. I think this is going to have a similar reaction in Aldergrove, so I'm really excited for that. Jason, you were talking about, I think you said 9:30 p.m. Is that the closing time? You said 9:30, was that p.m.?
Correct.
Okay.
Yeah, we've, when people have asked, we've actually used our parks as kind of the standard, where we have our lights on our playing fields, for example, that stay on until 11 p.m. So we've kind of said that, we don't anticipate any time being open later than that, but again, we're just going to see. So yes, 9:30 p.m. was the time I referenced that we're going to start at and then evaluate as we go.
Sure, but for special events like the youth night or whatever, it could fluctuate, obviously. One of the questions I've had from the public is about food service in there, and are they allowed to sort of bring a picnic and have like lunch with their kids while their kids are swimming, and can they bring in their own food?
Yeah, I didn't touch on that, but we have the boardwalk truck stop, which is, and then inside we have a kiosk, which are all going to be done through the Township of Langley and the event center, and they're going to be triple O's. So we have a core triple O's menu, a fish and chips menu, kind of a kids healthier like wraps and fruit smoothies and things menu. So there will be food to buy. But in addition to that, we are allowing what we're just calling individual food and beverage. So you can't bring in coolers full of pop and start selling them for a couple bucks or whatever you want to do. But if you want to bring in your own coffee or your own sandwich or whatever, you can. And I think we're trying to call it individual to restrict big, rolling coolers and things, and just keep it to like, hey, if you got your backpack and you've packed a lunch, that's cool.
Okay, one more question. Just if you could flip to the slide where you showed that new deck that looks over top. I'm just curious about the accessibility from that deck to the pool deck. Can you go from up there, like if it was a birthday party, for example, can you go up and down easily? That. So
Yeah.
how do you get down to the pool deck from there?
So this is a big L shape. So there you don't go down this side. To our right, as it follows along the building that's an L shape, there's stairs that go down onto the pool deck.
Okay,
So we don't have a lift. So from a accessibility point of view, it's not elevator serviced, but it is, it's, I don't know, 10 stairs or so that you go up.
That's okay. I was just mostly curious about accessibility to the pool deck.
Right.
But because, like I said, a birthday party or something, I can see a bunch of people wanting to sort of come and go from there. So that's cool.
Yep.
I think this facility is really going to be a catalyst for change and revitalization in Aldergrove. So, I'm really, really grateful to you guys for all of your hard work, and Harb and Jason and Rob and everybody. I'm just so excited for this to open. So thank you very much for all of this.
You, Councillor Whitmarsh.
Thanks for all your hard work and to all the township staff on this. Most of my questions have been answered, but I had one question with regards to the seasonal water park area. I know early on there was some discussion about ways that maybe the seasonal water park might be able to be used in the winter and that sort of thing. Is there still sort of thinking along that lines as to ways to use that facility more than just 2 or 3 months of the year?
There definitely is. I would say, in fairness, our staff are focused on opening right now. But yes, there is. We've talked a lot about. So in this photo here, you see the competition pool, the leisure pool, the hot tub, and then the playground is to the right of that, is open year round. There's a fence that's a removable fence that goes in between the competition pool and the water slide tower there and runs the entire width, and they're in panels, so it's a removable fence. So when the water park is closed, those panels will be in place. When the water park is closed, though, due to a whole bunch of technical issues, the water is still in place, and could just be heated in a short period of time, but it's all in place. So what we've talked about, generally speaking, is trying to identify periods of time where there's a week or 2 week, like a decent little stretch, like you wouldn't want to gear up and just open for a day or something. But an example is spring break, right? Longer period of time. The seasonal, as we've called it, is kind of May long weekend to the end of September, kind of like our existing water parks, spray parks. So anything outside of that. So we've talked about Christmas, we've talked about spring break, we've talked about maybe Family Day weekend, although that is a shorter period of time. But any time where families are looking for activities that we could open up, maybe not the entire park, but definitely portions of the park. The tidal pool or Breaker Bay with the movie screen is theoretically could be open every Friday night. Like there's nothing really restricting it. We can be open all the time, but right now we're focused on the seasonal aspects, and then I think again staff will look for feedback from the people in Aldergrove and the surrounding area, and probably especially the youth, honestly, because that's one where they could really benefit from more activities year round. But that can all be open anytime.
Okay,
the water, for example, the water out of the aquaplay structure is 82 degrees, I think Steve told me. So the water's all heated. It's all separately filtered and treated. So you could do just one or any of the areas.
Good, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Long.
Yeah, real quick, and I know we're running out of time, but how early in the day can someone go for a swim? That question's been put to me quite a bit. I know that you're in flux, as you mentioned.
That's part of what I said. We're going to look for feedback. But right now, what do you...
Right now, just for the first 2 weeks, we're just doing the swimming lessons that start at 9.
And then after
that, we're looking at if we're going to do lap swims for people that could start, say, between 7 and 9.
Okay.
In that range, yeah.
So for those of you listening in the world, the answer is we're starting with just the swim lessons starting at 9. But once we get to regular operation midsummer, it'll likely be kind of a 7 a.m. to start for length swimming. Really, I think once we hit September and the fitness center opens, that's when we'll get more into possibly earlier times. But again, staff are going to look for feedback. We don't want to open the whole facility for 2 people. There has to be kind of a group. There's also a bit of chicken and egg, because if you don't open, then people don't know, and so sometimes you have to try. So
I look forward to seeing Davis in his swimsuit on Friday. That's for sure. With his rubber ducky.
Great, thank you. Councillor Sparrow.
Thank you. very excited. My kids, I think, have been counting down the days since the day I brought them pictures home of an exciting facility that I had just voted on and was very excited about. So most of my questions have been answered, but I did have a couple of questions. The movie screen, like, go on the inner tubes and watch movies, is that going to be programmed like through the leisure guide there's going to be, or through the website there's going to be information on when those are occurring?
Yeah, probably all of those things. The tubes, I didn't mention, Councillor Richter asked earlier about price. The tubes are going to be free, so they're included in admission, which isn't common. Actually, a lot of places you have to rent your tube, so touch on that. But the tubes are going to be free. We have single tubes and double tubes. For the movie screen in particular, I think staff have gathered a lot of information about, like, you have to pay a fee to show a current movie. So if you want to show, I don't know, what just came out, Ocean's 8 or something. I don't know why I picked that.
Jurassic Park.
Yeah, Jurassic Park. There's a fee, and you basically rent for a couple of days, and you show it. So I think those special events like that, I think will probably broadcast more on social media and local advertising, and probably users subscribing. Like teens especially. It's a lot of it's more through that basis. But we'll also advertise on the township page. I'm sure you'll have stuff on the website and all the traditional means. So it's going to be a bit of everything to.
Okay. And then as for sort of the area and the deck that you showed, will there be seating, like on the upper deck? Are you going to have actual tables and chairs for people to sit at, or is it what?
Yeah, this is where Rod looks at me and smiles, right? Yeah, we will. So actually, I think you're going to have those for opening, aren't you? Yeah. So there's a lot of stuff. We haven't been able to deliver a lot because it's been a construction site. So there's been this delicate balance of when do you order to actually get it in time, but not get it too early. So yes, up on that deck, there's tables and chairs. Throughout the kind of the food area that I didn't really show, there's tables and chairs. There's some shade areas, etc. Closer to the pools here, underneath the heaters, we're going to have what we call tip and rolls, but they're you'd think of them as baseball bleachers probably, but like the 4-level bleachers. And then where those posts are on the south side of the competition pool, they can be rolled and all placed in there between the columns. So depending on the event, depending on, is it a competition, is it a leisure swim, is it just a regular lesson, they can be moved around. So there is different seating spread around. Okay. And I think earlier question about food, we're actually going to allow people to bring their own chairs, I think, as well, right?
That was my next question, if people could bring their own chair.
Yeah.
Okay.
Once we have the grass area open, it'll change a lot where people can sit. So for the first little while, but yeah, we're going to allow people to bring their own stuff as well. Again, reasonable.
Reasonable.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay. Great. No, that's fantastic. I'm very, very excited for this to open.
Thanks.
Thank you. Councillor Davis.
When I pressed my button, I looked over and Jack's head went down. So I'll be real fast. I will wear the old black rugby shorts that I still have white paint on, if you remember from the old pool. And have we dealt with the seagulls and the barn swallows up in here? And don't even answer me. Let's get on with it. Let's get the pool open. Thank you very much. You did a good job. Over and out.
Thank you. We do have bird spikes on all the lights in different areas. But.
All right, well, that wraps up the questions from Council. Again, thank you very much. Look forward to Friday.
Thanks.
Okay. All right, so now we'll move on to reports to Council, which are quite a few today. We'll start with F1. This is 88 Avenue and 217A Street Sewer Local Area Service. Moved by Councillor Fox, seconder, Councillor Qualley. Discussion on F1. Seeing none, I'll call the question. That carries unanimously. And move on to F2 is Agricultural Land Commission application number 100350, Southgate Christian Fellowship. Could I have a motion, please? Councillor Long moves, and second, Councillor Qualley. Councillor Long.
I would like to make a different motion.
Than
there's on there.
Yeah, so I'll let you
So
verbalize the
we'll
motion.
have to work on the wording, but rather than council not authorize it, that we do authorize the non-farm use with an amendment and a condition that the proponent be required to register a covenant to ensure that 10 acres of the property be dedicated to active farming in perpetuity.
Okay, so removing the word. Okay, so we had a seconder. So removing the word "not," and then so that would be that in the recommendation. Then adding that piece that you just mentioned about the covenant. So Councillor Long moves that, and Councillor Qualley had seconded. So I'll keep that on the record. So seconded by Councillor Qualley. So now discussion on it. So Councillor Richter?
Yeah, we've in the past had issues with churches in South Langley, and it says here on our report on page 2 that the proposal is inconsistent with the township's assembly use locational guidelines. So my question is, how inconsistent is it?
I'll ask Mr. Backen or Mr. Seffi. Thank you.
Like, what's missing?
Thank you, Your Worship. The rural plan essentially directs, if you will, institutional uses to the agro-service centers, as you can see them in red circles on this map on the rural plan. So that's essentially the guidelines provided for in the rural plan. They are to be directed towards the agro-service and commercial and rural commercial centers.
Okay, because I know in the past there was issues about septic, being on water, access to emergency services, proper road structure. So this site here, are they going to, well, they've got water there because water comes down 200s, but what about like septic?
Your Worship, the application that Council is considering at this point is a referral to the ALC. If the the current motion passes, and if the ALC then approves this, as was referenced earlier during the delegation, the application will have to be submitted for rezoning, at which point the servicing issues will be addressed and will be subject to several other steps, including the approval of the Minister of Agriculture as well as Metro Vancouver Board.
Okay. Well, I guess the big question that I'm asking, because I know that staff spent a lot of time developing the assembly use locational guidelines. Is this like totally out of keeping with those guidelines?
Well, Your Worship, it is not a matter of, I guess, subjectiveness. It does not meet the policy direction set by Council through the provisions of the rural plan. So there is no sort of discretion for staff to exercise.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Davis?
Thank you. I just, when we put in here actively farming it, that's might be a difficult one, because who's gonna make sure it's actively farmed, and at least 10 acres, because there's if it's 15 acres, just about 16 acres, and on page 5, if you look at the proposed facility, I believe it covers the square part of the. Like, so is there going to be 10 acres left? Well, how can that happen? Like, because if you look at page 5, I guess you can't show that. Well, right there. Yeah. And if this is a property line, there may be more acreages on the top of that piece than there is on the bottom. Anyhow, just a question that Councillor Richter asked, I guess the answer, how far? I guess it does not meet the criteria. Anyhow, just thoughts. Over.
Thank you. Councillor Arneson?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I'm actually going to support this going forward to the ALSC. I have some concerns actually having to do with sewer and water as well, and the siting. However, I think part of the pragmatism here for me is, if we're looking at any kind of net benefit to farming, the explanation is that in return for the 10 acres, more or less, of it being actively farmed and protecting it with a covenant in perpetuity, then if the alternative result would be some point in the future that the land use could just go to an estate farm where potentially there wouldn't be any benefit, I think, to farming and agriculture and the community in that regard. I think we should, while I personally will be supporting this and think that it's one of those things that we have to weigh and balance. And we do have control over other issues when it comes back if it's supported by Metro as well as the Agricultural Land Commission. So I'm going to support this.
Thank you. Councillor Whitmarsh.
Yeah, I certainly will support this. I think this is an increase to farming. It has not been farmed for, I don't know how long, maybe at least 40 years or more. And this enhances farming. It creates an opportunity for that to occur by a covenant. And so it makes sense to me. And all in this case we're being asked for is to send this to the ALC. ALC will also make their decisions about the viability of it for farming and protection of ALR land. And so our task today is to submit it if we think that this helps, and I do think it does help farming.
Thank you. Councillor Qualley.
Thank you. Could I just ask through you, Mayor Froese, to Ms. Bauer, just for the exact wording on the motion again?
Certainly.
Thank you, Your Worship. As we're recording it, it's the motion that the council authorize referral of the non-farm use application, with the added words on the end that the proponent register a covenant that 10 acres approximately be dedicated to farm use in perpetuity.
Thank you very much. I have one. I don't want the word "at least" in there, because this is going to come back to a decision, assuming this is approved by the ALC, of a future council, and perhaps there'd be some confusion that it should be a lot more than 10. So I would just want it to not say "at least," rather just 10. So is that word in there or not?
Approximately.
Approximately is, I can live with approximately. Councillor Long, is that? I mean, sorry, Mayor Froese, that's up to you to ask him, but.
Yep, no.
Why would you say 10 acres?
I think approximately is okay. It could be
So the challenge we're going to have is if this does come back for rezoning, it then may have to have some road dedications or balance around it. So we're arguing, or we're trying to determine what the appropriate language is. One option would simply be to take the plans as they now exist and say the balance of the property be actively farmed.
And that allows future council to make some decisions, and yeah, so approximately is fine.
And the challenge is if it then turns out to be 8 or 9 acres, because it's a road allowance lost of a couple acres on each side, it'll have to come back for council for further approval.
That's right.
No, if you say approximately 10 acres, that's what you're saying, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you. Hey, thank you.
Sorry, I just had one more thing. I do think that, we get applications like this all the time for us to talk about whether it meets our requirements or not. And we've had other applications that we've sort of been in a similar situation where they didn't fit into a specific box. And, the net benefit to farming isn't our decision. That's the decision of the ALC. But I see a net benefit to our community. And so I'm really going to support the application going forward because of that net benefit. So, yeah.
Thank you. Councillor Sparrow.
Yeah, I'll echo Councillor Qualley's words. I think that this definitely is a net benefit to our community as a whole, and so I'm going to support sending it forward and having the ALC have their say and Metro as well on whether or not this moves forward. So.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Richter.
Yeah, I just wanted to clarify the wording again. So it's approximately 10 acres. Will be dedicated to active farming in perpetuity?
That's what remains, active farming in perpetuity.
Thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Davis?
I have issues with the word because the balance meaning, what that means to me is you've got a building site here, build whatever you want, and if you've got a little acre in the corner, that's fine too. And I know that's not the intention.
The balance is not part of the resolution.
So it's not going to be. So it's going to be.
It's
going to be
approximately 10 acres to be dedicated to dedicated to farming, to active farming in perpetuity.
But this active to farming and you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. How is that going to work? I don't know. I just sorry. I'm.
Well, as long as there's a horse on there, you'll be okay.
Yeah, I guess so. Okay, thanks.
Okay, thank you. I see no further discussion, so I'm going to call the question on F2. And it carries with Councillor Davis opposed. We move on to F3, Agricultural Land Commission application number 100360, Coast Cranberries Limited. Can I have a motion, please? Councillor Fox, second by Councillor Whitmarsh. Discussion, Councillor Richter.
Yeah, I had a question, like these 3 parcels of land. I recall several years back something about a walking trail being put through that property. Am I thinking of the right property?
I think that's further to the north. These seems to be properties that are fronting they're south of the terminus of the road. The walking trail, I think, was much further to the north. So this is actually regarding those properties that are in the area that will exceed the 10-day farming activity.
Okay, so I just wanted to make sure that the trail that was, I know we had a tour of it, one of the councils, Councillor Long, you might remember it, if that trail is not going to be impacted by these.
Correct. These parcels are south of where that location was.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Fox.
Yeah, thank you, Your Worship. And as Councillor Richter referred to, the next 3 are basically all. And I appreciate the fact that actually they're coming to council and asking. So many filming operations just seem to appear on ELR land. And all of a sudden then we have neighbors and others taking issue with them. So I appreciate the fact that they've actually gone through a due process here and managed to come forward and ask for council's permission. So I'm going to support them. Obviously, the filming industry is vibrant in a variety of different locations, and I think that this at least gives us the opportunity to acknowledge in advance that there's going to be the filming. And it doesn't seem that there's many neighbors there's an auto recycler there that I don't know how the heck he even got there, but there's an auto recycler in the middle of this thing. But yeah, I'm going to support them.
Thank you. Councillor Arneson.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. So in reading the staff report, in addition to the application for extended use of the property for filming, I'm wondering through Your Worship to staff, if we have ever considered surrounding roadway infrastructure and capacity issues. I just note, having lived in this area before, that the access road is quite steep and narrow at some points. And I just have some issues about the large vehicles potentially that might be trying to navigate this area in particular.
Okay, thank you. So you have questions or?
Yes, that was the question.
Okay.
Do we consider that?
I don't know if we do. I don't know if that's in our realm, but Mr. Seffi could.
Certainly, Your Worship, but I guess in the context of all the other needs of the township in terms of road improvement needs, I don't think this is a major concern or major issue, at least not that staff is aware of.
Thank you.
Yeah, and with those operations, there are some cranberry operations in the vicinity, very large ones, and so I know there are fairly large trucks that access that area already. So I would think they'd be able to handle other traffic that's similar, just for information. Councillor Davis.
Thank you. On page 5, there will be no impact on agricultural lands as the productions always return the land to the same state as they find it. And then so the permit's going to be from 60 to 90 days on this one, and it falls back to 50 to 75 days on the other 2. But this is a permit that we don't always get these. I get, like Councillor Fox says, sometimes they show up and make a deal, but that's not happening that much more, is it? I mean, well, maybe it is. Okay. Anyhow, my comments is that they'll leave it the same state as they find it. So if they're going to be there for 60 to 90 days, they do a lot of cleanup, and those sometimes they may be there for 10 days in a row or something like that. So it's as long as it's, and it says in here that they cannot construct any permanent buildings and that sort of stuff, so it doesn't affect agriculture. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I see no further discussion, so I will call the question on F3. And it carries unanimously. We go to F4. I need Councillor Fox, Councillor Long seconds. Discussion on F4. Councillor Arneson.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. When I look at the map, I believe this is an area that's been highlighted by LEPs in the past, has a sensitive ecological area with finger lakes and lots of wetlands. I'm wondering, I know that this is an application for filming, so the degree to which we have jurisdiction over that, but I just want to make sure that if there is a lot of activity on this property, that we're protecting the riparian areas. I'm sure that the applicants are very good stewards. Actually, I know that they are, but I just want to make sure that this could be taken into account when they are doing this extraordinary filming there.
Okay, Mr. Backen.
Your Worship, that is correct. As part of the filming process, it wouldn't be disturbing it. Just a caution, though, that if the filming process were to be instead replaced by farm activity, we'd have virtually no jurisdiction. That'd be between the ministries.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, I see no further discussion on F4, so I'll call a question. It carries unanimously. And move on to F5. Have a motion, please. Councillor Fox moves it. Councillor Qualley seconds. Discussion on F5. Councillor Arneson.
Yes, thank you, Worship. This is another tangential thought. I know that this is sort of an emerging area where, because of regulations that have changed through the Agricultural Land Commission, it is an extraordinary application that's made to extend the number of filming days. And I'm just wondering if the township might consider, and I may have to put this motion forward at some point, the basis upon which, with the extraordinary granting, we could consider some kind of modest fee that would be attached to that as a benefit to agriculture. Because this, I understand they're, making the case this is an agricultural use, but I'm wondering whether or not there could be some kind of funds, however modest, to go towards the Langley Sustainable Agricultural Foundation for advocacy for the lands in the ALR.
Backen.
Worship, as an overall policy, I think in theory it could be done. It might be some sort of licensing fee. We have to be cautious, though, because that would be based on a cost recovery model as required by the legislation. But if there was a referral made to staff or a notice of motion later, we could investigate, I guess, some sort of licensing fee with the proviso that it somehow benefits agriculture but still stays within the regulatory framework.
Okay, good. Thank you. See no further discussion. I'll call the question on F5. Councillor Davis along. Do you wish to vote? F5. We're voting. Sorry. Thank you. Carries unanimously. Move on to F6. Request for fee simple subdivision of 23668 and 23676 36th Avenue. Councillor Fox moves it. Is there a seconder? Councillor Qualley seconds. Councillor Fox.
Yeah, and thank you to staff for the report. You've got three options there, A, B, and C, in the report. This particular issue was brought up by the particular properties which are where the red dot is. And that really reflects in option B, which is to allow the free simple subdivision of the subject properties and consider subdivision of properties on a case-by-case basis. So this is these two owners have presented themselves as a case, which is fair. There are already strata lots on there, and there are already fee simple lots on there. At the end of the report on page 4, staff recommend a public information meeting for the property owners within the 36A block. The purpose of the public information meeting will be to inform the owners of the request for the subdivision and receive feedback on the options available as presented in this report. So my question through you, Your Worship, to Mr. Seffi is, there's already diversity there. So if you held a public information meeting, are you going to A, ask whether they agree or disagree with the option B, which is the proposal as presented by these two property owners, or are you asking the existing strata lots if they would prefer to have fee simple lots? What would be the objective of the public information meeting?
Mr. Seffi?
Thank you, Your Worship. The intent is to, subject to Council's approval, to gauge the level of support for the options that staff have identified, and indeed if there are other options that council wishes to explore. So in other words, find out if one option is preferred by the majority over the others, and in addition provide opportunity for feedback and comments and exploration of other options that the public may feel are advantageous, and report back to council.
So, number one, I don't want to hold up these folks' application, if at all possible. So what would a timeline be for a meeting with these other residences? And B, would we entertain a more holistic approach to, if the existing strata lots, which are shown there, chose to go to fee simple lots, would we just do it all at once? So let's say 1 lot, 2 lots, 3 lots don't want to change the strata lot existence of their present zoning, but let's say 8 or 10 of them want to. So would we do all 8 or 10 at the same time? So what's the timeline, and what about outcomes in terms of people's ideas that they may want to change as well?
Your Worship, in terms of the timelines, I was just thinking as Councillor Fox was posing his questions, it is unlikely, I think, to have this done prior to the summer break, and with that, I think we'll be looking at doing it, given all the notifications required and all the planning and the booking of available halls, etc. So then, with that in mind, we will be looking at something in September timelines, and then reporting back to council following that. In terms of the potential input that we will receive, we will go based on, the majority will, and if the majority is not, if there is no unanimous support for everything or for any of the options, which is quite likely, then it's a matter of presenting the majority support to council, and if that is got some implications in terms of servicing and other issues procedurally, then we report those as well.
Okay, I appreciate that. Just based on that information, I think at this point in time, I'm in favor of option B, and that's what I would propose we would focus on, because I think that we can get to, this can become very convoluted and very challenging when really we started off with one application, and I think we need to do it on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Davis.
I don't know if this matters so much, but is this road on a water system, or are they all wells?
Mr. Steffi, are you aware?
I don't believe there's water there, Your Worship. It's a rural area that is serviced by private wells.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Richter.
Yeah, I just want a clarification. Option C, where it says allow fee simple subdivision for all properties in the 36A block. Does that mean the blue ones as well as the white ones?
That's correct, Your Worship.
So, and what are we taking this to? Are we taking this to half-acre lots?
No, Your Worship. This is just to provide the existing lots to be able to subdivide into 2 fee simple lots as opposed to 2 strata units, which is currently allowed pursuant to our zoning bylaw as well as the provincial legislation. So it doesn't affect the lot sizes. It just provides for the existing lot to split into 2 fee simple lots.
Okay, but why would we do that? That's just densifying in a rural area.
It is just an option, Your Worship, in terms of what the current, or not the current, but the delegation that appeared in front of council that triggered this report was asking. The delegation was asking for fee simple subdivision.
I don't think option C should even be on the table.
Mr. Backen, I believe it's going to public for input, so at this point we're not choosing. We're just
just to clarify, the situation exists that for properties that are under 2 acres or not in the ALR, it is possible if there is no existing dwelling and new dwellings are built, that they can be stratified. So those properties that you see there, if the conditions are met, if there is no dwelling or if the dwellings are demolished, new dwellings are built, they can be stratified, effectively creating two titles. And what we're seeing is when that situation occurs, parties come forth and seek to have their strata lots converted to fee simple lots. That's council's decision, is do they want to see them left as strata or see them actually converted to fee simple? And the discussion is, should we entertain that and how should it best be dealt with? Here the suggestion is that we actually can communicate with the public in that street and get a sense of it, because as it is right now, only the light colored ones have been stratified. The blue ones could be stratified, but they could not be stratified without new dwellings being built.
Okay. Thank you. Councilor Sparrow.
Yeah, so just to pick up on that, we're not adding any more density than what's currently allowed. It's taking properties that would be subdivided and be strataed, and now allowing them to be fee simple. We're not subdividing this even further than what it could be already if people wanted to do that. It's just the change of the title from a strata to a fee simple.
Correct.
Just like we did in Walnut Grove.
Yes, 217A.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Councilor Fox.
Yeah, I just think we need to focus on what the applications were. I mean, these little pockets are really anomalies, and they've confused me all the way through. Councilor Sparrow alluded to the one on 217A Street in 87A, whatever it was, 217A and 87th. This is another one. I think there's through you, Mr. Seffi, I think there's 6 or 7 of these little anomalies in the township. Is that not correct?
That's correct.
Yeah. So I think we need to focus on the applicants that came forward, which was 23668 and 23676, 36A Avenue. And if the others want to get on board, they can go through the same application process and then just let it die. I agree with Councillor Richter. Let's not go and make all of them necessarily, and let's not have a public information meeting. Let's just deal with what we got here in front of us.
Okay. So, Your Worship, we just have to clarify what the motion was, because we're hearing different motions. So, Councillor Fox, we have you as the mover. Can you clarify as to what you had moved?
With option B.
Option B is
pursuing option B.
So the motion is not that we authorize staff to proceed with public information meeting?
No.
That's what I understood.
It's to authorize option B, staff to proceed with option B.
I didn't hear that in the original motion.
Okay.
No, that was not the original motion, so we need to amend.
Okay, I'll amend the original motion, and if that's necessary, the council will authorize staff to proceed with option B, allowing a fee simple subdivision of the subject properties and consider subdivision of properties on 36A block on a case-by-case basis.
And so just, Mr. Back can help me out here. So then not to proceed with public information meeting?
I didn't mention a public information meeting.
What we're doing, an amendment to a motion that says that,
Right.
so we need to clarify this.
Worship, we maybe can check with the seconder, because there's a lot of confusion as to what the motion was. And then we may have a mover of one and a seconder of something different. If that's the case, then we simply can restate the motion, have a seconder, and proceed without the amendment.
Okay, so who's the seconder on that?
It was me.
Councillor Qualley, were you thinking of this? The motion that's in front of us, that was what I understood was moved. Yeah, and that's what the seconder moved. So this
Your
would have to
Worship,
be
then we have
dealt
a
with.
mover moving option B. We have a seconder for as what's on the table, so we have no motion. So now we need.
Well, no, the mover moved. He did not
mover-
elaborate and just moved the recommendation.
So
And
the
so
mover
now
moved the
it's-
recommendation, but the mover's telling us he didn't move the recommendation, so it's your call as a chair whether he moved the recommendation or moved option B.
I'll move an amendment to the motion on the table.
That'll keep it clean then, I think. If
Right.
we move an amendment. So the amendment would be not to proceed with a public information meeting and to proceed with option B. Does that clarify? Is that, Ms. Bauer, is that that help in the amendment? Just to make sure we keep our minutes straight and the motions, that's all.
The cleaner way in the minutes would be for the mover to withdraw the motion and just begin with the clean motion.
Okay.
Amendment would be to change a few words, not to change the motion.
That's right.
Okay.
So I understand. So we'll withdraw the motion. Can that be done under procedural bylaw? Okay. So it's.
I'll withdraw the motion.
With the consent of the entire council.
Yeah, as long as there's unanimous consent.
And move the motion that councillor authorized staff to proceed with option B.
Okay.
As outlined in the staff report.
Okay, so I'm going to start a new, so as a move, that's been moved, seconder. Councillor Qualley seconds it. So I've just opened a new discussion. So Councillor Long.
So, Your Worship, I don't know if I agree with that, because staff are suggesting that they take all three options to a public information meeting and get feedback and report back on what the preferred, what the attitude is about all the residents there. Then we can decide option A, B, or C. Is that not really what the staff were asking originally?
Mr. Backen?
I think that's the direction we were headed. However, we do understand the concern that then we're actually, if you will, bringing to everyone's attention the potential. And rather than do so, perhaps it should be dealt with on a case-by-case basis, because those are actual applications, not, I guess, theoretical applications.
Okay, so then, but I mean, it's already, this is a public meeting, so there was an option here to talk with the whole neighborhood about the different directions it can go, and now we're saying, no, we're just going to go this way.
Well, we're just going this way for the applications, not for the entire
Well,
neighborhood.
I guess it's okay, because it doesn't mean you're not allowed to apply.
That's
It
right.
says that on a case-by-case basis, we're going to consider it.
Yeah.
I hear you. Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Sparrow?
I guess my question is just on our, like, how we deal with it on our end. Would it not be easier, like, let's say there's 3 or 4 other neighbors who weren't aware of the situation, or that they were able to do such a thing, and they find out about it because these went through. Is it not easier for us on our end to deal with them all at once, or is it make no difference if we deal with these two properties, and then we, a month from now get another application, and a month from now we get another application? I'm just wondering if logistically, if it's just easier for us to deal with letting everybody know all at once, going through the public information part of it, and then moving forward with anyone else who wanted to do the same. Because all of them are technically able to do that and apply, just like these ones did, right?
Correct. The challenge is it really depends upon the parent parcel. So if you have the parent parcel, you limit the application really to the parent parcel, because you're converting it from 2 stratas then to the fee simple. If they were contiguous, as you see, there's a few of them up there that are, then perhaps you could join them together. But ideally, you'd want to deal with them on separate, because they're going to be different owners subject to the parent parcel. When you have an original parcel and 2 owners, you're then adding other parcels to the rezoning, and they're different owners. So it becomes very complicated because there may be different servicing requirements.
Okay, so it really makes no difference on our end of things whether or not we had everybody apply, like a whole bunch of people all at once, all different landowners put in applications just like these guys have.
Doesn't help the application process. It helps, I guess, the end result, I suppose, in that you have something that's definitive. However, the challenge with that, there may be some people there that have no intention of stratifying, or if they are stratified, they have no intention of going towards fee simple. The reason for the motion, as stated, was because it was staff's interpretation of that was council's direction, and that's why they put it forth. But they put it forth with the options, and council's now deliberating on option B.
Gotcha. Okay, thank you.
Councilor Long?
I'm having trouble supporting it, because I think we should go out and consult with the whole neighborhood. I know that, and in fact, I think we're doing it as we speak, because this is a public meeting. So, that now that those options are presented, I don't know why we wouldn't go to the whole neighborhood and have a discussion with them, and then come back and make a decision.
Thank you. Councilor Arneson?
Yes, thank you, Worship. I'm going to support option B. I'm reminded of the Northeast Langley situation where we had some options, and there was one request to change the zoning, and next thing we know, it turns into quite a potentially divisive thing in the community. I prefer just to leave the status quo. I don't think we're disadvantaged in any way. Anybody who cares to know or could know would understand that they are able to make this application, but I don't think we need to go forward proactively and make this a wholesale kind of exercise that way. So, I support B.
Councilor Fox?
No.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion? I'll call the question. 6. Carries with Councilor Long opposed. Move on to F7. This is heavy rescue truck replacement. Can I have a motion, Councilor Long? Councilor Sparrow seconds. Discussion. Okay, I was going to clear the queue. And Councilor Richter, you wish to speak to it? I'm just clearing the queue. If you wish to push a button again, so I was still on the other one. Thank you, Councilor Richter.
Yes. Are we getting any money back from ICBC for this accident? And were there any injuries as a result of the accident?
Mr. Backen?
Well, by recollection, I don't think there were any injuries, and if they were minor bumps and bruises. going by recollection. As to the situation, as with any vehicle with the insurance, you get the depreciated value of the vehicle for it. So if a vehicle is partway through its lifespan, you get a value for it, but it doesn't. It's not the same as the replacement cost of the vehicle itself.
Okay, so we are getting some.
There's some value, but it doesn't represent the value of the truck. The equipment reserve is coming in to pick up the rest.
Okay. Councillor Davis?
Did I already, through Mayor Froese, see it up at Max Traders sitting on a pile up? I saw a red fire truck up there.
That was from another jurisdiction.
Oh, is that right? No, okay.
Okay, no further discussion. I'm going to call the question on F7. It carries unanimously. Move on to F8. This is the 2017 Statement of Financial Information and 2017 Annual Report. If I could have a motion, please. Councillor Sparrow and a seconder. Councillor Fox. Now, Mr. Backen, do I need to ask for
submissions?
Submissions. Thank you. So at this point, I'd ask for submissions from the public regarding the financial information and annual report. And for a second time, submissions from the public regarding the 2017 Statement of Financial Information and 2017 Annual Report. And for a third time, submissions from the public regarding the 2017 Statement of Financial Information and 2017 Annual Report. Seeing none, I'll now move to Council. If Council has any questions or comments. Councillor Richter.
Yes. I note that there's now 333 employees of the township with greater remuneration than $75,000 per year. So my question is, how many employees do we have in the township? So what percentage is this 333?
Just doing a quick calculation.
It's just under 30%.
Now, how does that stack up relative to similar-sized communities in BC? Are we at the median? Are we above? Are we below?
It depends on the composition of the community's workforce. When you have an example would be a paid call community as a percentage would probably have lower depending upon the busyness of their community. Of those communities that were the full-time force, we are probably a bit light in terms of our total compensation, but that's a variable thing that can change, I guess, depending upon the complexity of the environment, including the downloading that's going on.
So, for example, a comparable community would be Kelowna to us, right?
Kelowna would be of similar size. Of the fastest growing communities, which was usually referred to as Abbotsford, Langley, Coquitlam, and I'm missing one, Coquitlam and Abbotsford, and Surrey, as a percentage, we're probably equivalent or a little bit less.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. There's an interesting discussion in the report regarding, and just on that very question, regarding the fact that the threshold hasn't been changed for, since 1990 something or other? When was that, Mr. Clare? The threshold for the $75,000 for those earning over $75,000.
2002.
2002, sorry. And it had an interesting discussion. I really appreciate that because it kind of puts it in a little bit of perspective. Is there any indication, I guess it would be provincial, is it provincial legislation, when that would get changed, or is there talk about it because it's been, 15 years, 16 years?
Your Worship, in speaking with my colleagues, I know that it comes up just about every year around this time, and so far there has been no appetite. The last time it went from 50,000 to 75,000, and there hasn't been any appetite in the province to change it at this point in time.
Okay. Do you know how long that period lasted, from the 50,000 to 75,000? Just was about the same long, 20 years, 10 years?
How long it was at 50,000?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I don't have that information.
No problem. Okay, thank you. I see no further discussion. I'm going to call the question on F8. That carries unanimously. Move on to F9, and this is time-restricted parking policy. Could I have a motion, please? Councillor Qualley moves it. Is there a seconder? Councillor Fox. Discussion, Councillor Richter.
Yes. Is this policy going to be applicable to every road in Langley, or is there just certain areas? And if it is just certain areas, is there a map of which areas are eligible?
Mr. Steffi, perhaps you could outline how this will roll out.
Your Worship, the policy provides for residents in an area to actually apply for, as long as parking is provided on the street, to apply for, and subject to the majority again, meeting a threshold of 67%. As long as the majority is in support, then the process can be initiated for installation of no parking or implementation of limited parking restrictions or time limited parking on that stretch of road.
Okay, but does it apply to, I'm just wondering where?
It
Which
is
roads are
township-wide, Your Worship. It could be any local road.
Any local road in the township. Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Whitmarsh?
Yeah, just a question through your worship to staff. On the first page, it talks about this automated license plate recognition system. I'm just wondering if you could just give a very brief explanation what that means or how that works.
Your Worship, this is an equipment that provides for electronic reading of license plates and recognition of the license plate that replaces the traditional way of chalking the tires, if you will. It is most efficient, and it reduces I guess the work or the time that's required by the staff hours that's needed to administer and enforce time-restricted parking.
Okay, so because it talks in here about this being a labor-intensive issue, and this helps to resolve that. So this still does require a staff member to go to the vehicle and take a picture of the license plate or something like that for it to be recognized. There still is a staff that does this.
It is the existing bylaw enforcement staff, Your Worship, that will be able to utilize this equipment as part of their other operations and much more efficiently make sure that the areas that are subject to time-restricted parking are being monitored and enforced.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Long?
Yeah, I mean, I wrote it down as a mobile meter maid. So I think the car just drives by and picks up on the plates, that they don't have to stop and take a picture or nothing like that. So I guess it's just like maybe like that Google machine that drives around with the thing.
That's correct, Your Worship.
So,
and is it named Rita?
You'd have to get one of those James Bond license plate revolving things, right?
All right, thank you. Councillor Qualley?
Thanks. I just wanted to thank staff for this. I think as the township continues to grow and we provide new and enhanced amenities, I think this policy just puts a new tool in our toolbox. So I'd like to thank staff for this and appreciate the effort in getting this back to us.
Thank you. Councillor Arneson?
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. I think this is a great initiative. I'm just prospectively, I think, thinking about the potential for uptake. And so I wonder, through Your Worship to staff, if this could be considered in any way in the future revenue neutral, in the sense that the fines would balance off whatever other future enforcement staff we might need as we have more of these areas in play.
Mr. Seffi?
Generally speaking, Your Worship, our fees are on a cost recovery basis anyway, so this would be similar.
Okay, because it had occurred to me that as we go forward, there might be some, I'm going to call them hotspots for parking, that we might want to have a nominal parking fee just to enhance our revenue stream to help to defray these costs. Thank you.
Yeah, Your Worship, it will be considered.
Thank you. Councillor Long?
Real quickly, Your Worship, I was going to ask, this will be put into effect around the hospital and the fire hall, because I know that's been a tough area all along here. So will this help with that issue in Murrayville?
Rebecca?
It certainly could. Again, we go to the initiating sequence that's required, but that's one of the areas that we're thinking would be appropriate.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, see no further discussion. I'll call the question on F10, or F9, sorry. And it carries unanimously. We move on to F10. This is a big one. 208 Street Corridor Update. Could I have a motion, please? Councillor Fox moves it. Seconder. Councillor Whitmarsh seconds. Discussion, Councillor Richter.
Yeah, I had a question on page 11, which is that about road DCC borrowing, that the debt servicing from DCCs consumes approximately 35% of average annual DCC receipts. I'm just wondering why. And is that
Is that the legislation that we can use up to 35%?
No, I think that's referring to the previous projects we've authorized. So because we have a number of projects authorized from DCCs, including contributions to interchanges and overpasses, that just reflects the amount of borrowing we have outstanding.
Okay, thank you.
So we're spending 35% of DCCs on servicing costs.
On the roads DCCs, because of the infrastructure that was built at some of the interchanges, bridges, and I guess railway crossing. Well, no, that wouldn't be that. Sorry, that wouldn't be the case because those aren't DCCs. Mr. Sefi, what are the major projects for the DCCs?
216th interchange, 208 Street overpass.
Mufford.
Mufford.
Okay. Thank you.
And my other comment was, I'm not sure with all the complaints that come in about this road, why not having anything substantively done until 2021 is going to be acceptable to the public. Is there nothing else that we can do?
Again, it comes down to the actual costs associated with it. So if we were in favor of actually getting further DCC borrowing or general borrowing to pay for the roads, which would mean that we could not recover it from DCCs, it could be accelerated. Our biggest challenge is, as part of the development program, we look for the roads to be provided on a without cost basis, and even making the maximum assumptions we can do on this, where there are some sections where there's no development potential, such as along the Willowbrook connector, we'll likely have to acquire those lands. So the goal is to be as fiscally responsible as we can be in terms of land acquisition. Mr. Sefi, now might be an opportune time just to reflect what the chart on the screen actually represents, because I think it does very quickly try to show the various types of properties that are looking in what the time frame would be and what the process would be to try to acquire the interest early, that is the right-of-way or the dedication.
Thank you. Your Worship, as the legend on the right-hand side, on the top right corner indicates, it goes from the green to the blue in terms of the likelihood of development in the shorter term. So 1 to 3 years green, 3 to 5 years is the magenta, the purple color, and then plus 5 years estimated by staff at this point, which is always subject to change by the landowners being 5+ years. So looking at the I guess the section to the right, Your Worship, the northerly section from 80th to the overpass, as you can see, the green section on the west side of 208 Street is currently under application, and in fact is on Council's agenda this evening for Council to consider first and second reading of. So that will likely proceed as the map indicates in the next 1 to 3 years and get completed within that time period, which leaves the other portions there. And staff is recommending funding be set aside for the blue portion that is longer term, such that we can get going on that piece. So with that said, Your Worship, the section from 80th to the overpass will be essentially done, and we can then focus on the remainder, and the plan would be to try and deal with the rest of it in terms of, I guess, the budget process until 2021. And if the applications for development don't proceed, the suggestion, the recommendation is to have a interim strategy, if you will, for the section from 68th Avenue all the way to 76th Avenue for that portion to be completed by 2021, utilizing the approximately $23 million, Your Worship. And I could also mention that the other green section, which is subject to application actually currently at third reading, is the section from north of 76th Avenue, again on the west side of 208 Street, 76th Avenue North, up to just south of the Willoughby Town Centre Drive, and that is actually under in the process and likely to be completed within the next year or so.
Well, in this report, I guess what I'm finding puzzling is we've got $1 million in 2019 to look at the Willoughby connector strip there, and then $10.7 million in the 2020 budget for that stretch. And I don't think that's the part of 208 Street that's problematic for people. I think the part that's problematic for people is north of 72nd. So I can't support this report right now because I think we're throwing money into the wrong solution. We should be focusing our attention on 208th north of 72nd right now.
Thank you. Councillor Arneson.
Yes, thank you, Worship. I just want to comment and thank staff very much for putting this very comprehensive package together, including the council recommendations for consideration in future budgets. I have quite a few comments actually about this report, so I'm just going to talk about them in general terms and then state what my concerns are about going forward at this time. So I think as we're all aware, and many of us have been on council longer than me, that this has been under active discussion for quite some time. The thing that I notice is that overall the cost is going up exponentially, even from 2015 or 14, when it was first a budgetary consideration to do the whole thing. So my concern in going forward with the recommendations, I think, are somewhat similar to Councillor Richter's potentially. I think that this is such I'm going to call it a lump of information, and we talk about unpacking things. I think that what we need to do is to look at these different options and have an opportunity to discuss them in a more fulsome way. I have also reached out to others in the community, including actually our development partners, and some of them very actively involved in UDI, and their thoughts and the feedback that I'm getting from them are somewhat instructive, I think, with respect to some of the information that's included in their staff report. For example, entering into discussion to see if land for widening can be obtained through a right-of-way. To me, that is a huge component of what the cost is currently projected to be, and we don't know exactly what that is and whether or not there would be uptake there. I also think that there's an opportunity for a latecomer fee, so that if there were property owners that wanted to advance this, that they could, they wouldn't be freeloaders in the end because they'd get the benefit of increased land values, but they would, because the road infrastructure would be going past their property. I tend to think that the priority areas are from 72nd to 77th Avenue as the choke points. There's a reference to $1 million for a detailed design from 68 to 76th Avenue, and that should, if we're going ahead with that, should cover both sides of the road. So generally, I think that I would prefer to have this report deferred until there is a next council who can consider during the initial stages of their workshopping to make priorities and to consider what is advisable. This report was very instructive to me in terms of the fact that we do have constraints that I personally wasn't aware of with respect to our borrowing. And I know that there's a lot of costs that we have incurred, but I'm also very concerned that UDI and other parties that would be interested and have, I think, a vested interest in this have not been brought into the discussion. And I think also the community interest is not necessarily represented in the report that I see here, although I do understand that it was internal to the township to create this framework for how they thought to best go forward. So I'm not prepared to support this report as it stands. I think we need to take some time to consider this and see what kind of cost funding reductions we can get by doing some of these initial initiatives, and maybe get the cost down that way. And if that's not successful, I would prefer that a future council be able to deliberate this in more detail and figure out what would work.
Mr. Backen, I know there's
Your Worship, just to try to, I guess, unpack it a bit more and clarify, because I can see some of the confusion. First of all, I think it would always be wise to refer it to a future council, specifically in the budget cycle, because it'd be then easier to assess it vis-a-vis the other priorities and available resources. But starting with the schematic going from the right to the left, I think what engineering is trying to put forth is that beginning with the area from, say, 84th to 77th Avenue, the green represents those that are active applications, meaning that the road would be completed, hopefully, as soon as those applications proceed. So it's unlikely if we wanted to do those on our own that we'd be able to I guess, advance them quicker than the applications would be doing themselves, unless the applications stall. As to the area around 83rd, that's a bit more problematic. There's some properties there that are in the longer term. So our approach would be, as was suggested, we would be attempting to get the landowners to provide us with dedications or rights of ways, and then probably try to build it out from our DCC reserves as they permitted, so we could have control of those. As to the middle column, where we see the other properties, where we have the green and the blue and the pink, again, we would be seeking to have the green done by the development. We'd be seeking to accelerate the blue where we possibly can, but that is actually in the area of another neighborhood plan, so we've got to be mindful that we have to do it more extensive discussions and whatnot. Why we were going to the far left with the black is there is no chance that the black would be produced by development. The tendency there will be to have to expand the road and acquire the lands to do so. And what the recommendation was effectively doing was advancing that portion rather than leaving it to the other portions being done, trying to actually get the road finished by the timeline that was represented around 2020 or 2021, funding from being permitted. So with that funding challenge, it would be very appropriate to refer the entire matter to the future budget process with the proviso we see where we can accelerate any construction as part of that referral.
Thank you. Councillor Davis.
You know, I've learned a lot. I think that it's not a problem to send it to the next council, as we had in 2014. We put things up on the and looked at it then. But basically, that's my points. Why not put it to the next council?
Thank you, Councillor Qualley.
Thank you. I think for me, it's just the first sentence that it just brings the whole thing together. I mean, all of what Councillor Arneson just cited can still happen because this motion is to be included in future budgets for their consideration. So we're not, fettering a future council. We're not advancing this beyond our capabilities. We're just putting it forward for consideration. And I think, as it comes forward for future consideration, staff will come back with opportunities of improvements or changes or ways to save money. I think if the opportunity arises to save some money, staff will definitely bring that to council's attention. So I'm going to support moving it forward because I think this shows some intention of this council to continue to make it a priority for future councils, but it still doesn't fetter the decisions of future councils in their budget consideration because, I think in the next few years we're going to have significant external pressures on our budgets, and I'm just not sure how we're going to square all these circles. And so anyhow, I'm going to support it because it is just for consideration.
Thank you. Councillor Whitmarsh.
Yeah, I think this report has been very helpful in clarifying what are the issues that we face with completion of 208th. And, I think staff has really done a good job in highlighting those areas in which future development may pay for that expansion and other places in which it won't. And that's why those are the priority areas for us to maybe get at, is the areas that we know development's not going to be able to get at. Certainly the new price tag here of approximately $83 million is a significant increase from what it was only a few years ago. We know that's largely because of the land values. And most of this section is being very prudent in trying to find ways for development to cover those costs. And there may be some ways to reduce that. There may be some options that are identified within this report. And so it makes sense to me to make a strong statement as this council, not just wait for the next, but to make a strong statement that 208 is important. and we believe this is a good process to move forward on. It doesn't stop previous councils from making any decision, as every one of those decisions goes to the budget cycle. So I think it makes a lot of sense for us to do it now, and then future councils will decide at each budget time what they're able to do and able to afford at that time. And so I will certainly support what's being asked for here.
Thank you. Councillor Long.
Yeah, thanks, Your Worship. That's exactly what I see the recommendation being, and that's what's on the table now, right? It
Yes,
is for
it is.
consideration to future councils. But what's got, I'm curious about is the last paragraph. I don't know if it's the last paragraph. It's on page 3 where it says an alternative for consideration would be for staff to enter into some discussions. Now, how does that play into the recommendation? Can staff explain that paragraph, which sounds reasonable, that they would enter in discussions with property owners to determine if the land required for the interim improvements, et cetera, can happen on the east side between 68th and 76?
Well, Your Worship, as I explained earlier, the current plan is to proceed with interim measures to deal with the section from 68th Avenue to 76th Avenue, which will require some property acquisition utilizing the $23 million by 2021. What that alternative is recommending or suggesting is discussions with the property owners to see if rights of way can be acquired to reduce that $23 million currently anticipated expenditure.
Yeah, so that would seem like a reasonable thing to do. So this is just, does it require a motion to activate that alternative consideration?
And that's
Can that be built in?
That's included. Yeah.
It's included.
It's in. Mr. Backen, if you could clarify that.
The intent is to express the desire that we can try to get the land by way of dedication or right-of-way without cost. But if this project was to proceed en masse, and this is several years from now, we may have to acquire those lands because we're trying to finish the road.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Richter?
Yeah, I was just wondering if Councillor Arneson was putting on a deferral motion, because if she is, I'll certainly support it. I think that this... the money being spent on 64th up to 68th, I don't think that's a priority for the community right now, and this whole motion anticipates that it is. So.
Thank you. Councillor Arneson's next on the speaker's list, so I'm assuming she has something. Councillor Arneson?
Thank you, Your Worship. With respect to the deferral, I'm getting the sense that the council majority would prefer, because this is a recommendation that will be subject to deliberations from the subsequent council in any event. So I'm not sure that a deferral at this point would be supported. Basically, my concern is I understand that this sounds like we're looking at options on those different budget years, but I don't want to preclude opportunities to work with other community partners, such as UDI, who sincerely feel that they can help to bring these prices down. I think there's a huge interest from the development community, as well as the community as a whole, as a public good, in order to make this project happen sooner rather than later. So my assessment of reading this is, maybe in whatever year it is, and the $23 million. What if we don't have that money? What if it's not available? And then we're going to say, okay, well, let's just keep doing what we're doing. I think we're doing ourselves a disservice if we don't try and engage more with looking at who else can help us to understand what a different type of prioritizing might look like and how we can achieve it. I'm a great fan of talking to the property owners who could, for their own reasons, decide to give us a right-of-way rather than extracting highest dollar value at this point. So I can make a deferral motion. I have a feeling it will fail, but I really do think that we owe it to ourselves to have those discussions with our community partners so we can make sure that any and all advantage that we can get financially, because this is a huge undertaking and this has been discussed for a long, long time. So I don't want to leave any stone unturned. And maybe this framework works for some. I think it's okay as a starting point, but I certainly hope we have many more robust discussions about that. But I will make a deferral motion after saying all that.
you said, excuse me, Councilor Arnson, you're not finished yet. A referral or deferral?
I would defer it.
Defer to
The next council.
To the next council. Back here. We're good? Okay. Okay, so I'll open up the Amendment 1. Councilor Whitmarsh.
Yeah, I don't support the deferral here. I think we've got, this is clearly stating an important consideration to get 208 completed. I don't think there's anything in here that says that the 23 million is final, that that's the final thing. I don't think there's anything in here that says that we would not try to find ways to reduce the 23 million. I think this is about sequencing. And so I don't support the deferral. I think this council needs to make a strong statement now and not wait till the next.
Okay, thank you. I see no further discussion. I'll call the question on the deferral on F10. Deferral fails with Councillor Fox, Councillor Whitmarsh, Mayor Froese, Councillor Qualley, Councillor Sparrow, Councillor Davis, Councillor Long opposed. Back to the main motion. Councillor Whitmarsh, did you wish to speak to the main motion? You're on the list.
I'm good.
Okay, so I'm calling the question on F10. And it carries with Councillor Richter opposed. We move on to F11, North Langley Truck Route Update. Could I have a motion, please? Councillor Qualley, second by Councillor Sparrow. Discussion, Councillor Richter.
Yes, I would like to move an amendment by striking part of the last paragraph. So the last paragraph reads that council directs staff that the designation of 216th Street as a truck route from Highway 1 North to 88th Avenue be withdrawn, period. And that the rest of that paragraph be deleted. I don't think it's very fair to those residents who've spent 4 years fighting this, that we're going to tell them in 2 years that they're going to have to fight it again.
Yes, the motion has been moved, amendment's been moved. Seconder, Councillor Arneson seconds. I'll open up the amendment. And I have a question for staff. So, Mr. Backen, basically, this is it was added on. It just allows us to direct staff to, at this point, to review, which is always a good idea once we have some new large piece of infrastructure in place. However, with this direction, it doesn't stop a future council from asking staff for a report on the usage. Is that correct?
So that's correct, Your Worship. The withdrawal of the concept that the matter not be reviewed in 24 months does not fetter a future council's discretion as to whether they wish to review it or not review it. It just means that falls away. The only comment would be also being deleted is that it's noting that under the regulations and bylaws, the roads may still be used by trucks. That's also fine to be deleted, just recognizing that the intent still remains, that the ability to leave the freeway and go to the nearest truck route remains unfettered.
Okay, thank you. Just Councillor Whitmarsh.
Yeah, I guess I was just seeking clarification from the mover of this motion that the part about that the road may still be used by trucks is also being removed from the motion.
It's just I believe that's
what
Councillor Richter's.
It's redundant. It's not needed.
It's just a note to.
Helpful.
It's just helpful, but it still exists whether it's in the motion or not. Is that, yeah. Okay, Councillor Long.
Yeah, and it's actually a statement that's been repeated and repeated over the last 4 years. That we can't be putting, you can't put a roadblock there. You can't stop trucks. Now the question I have then, and I'll support it because why not? And as it's been said, we're going to be looking at roads all the time anyway. This council or any future councils, but the matter of signage on the freeway advising that trucks ought to take 200th Street, is that included in this? It is in the report, so I just want to make sure that that's going to be acted upon, because I think that's a wise move, regardless, and even wherever we were going to end up. That there should be signage advising trucks, hey, don't be taking this road, just keep going to 200th.
I understand that would be, we'd be requesting the province to put those advisory signs up. Is that correct?
That's correct. They're advisory signs, not mandatory signs. So they'd just be request of them, and that would be something that we have to request of the province.
But that's in the report, so does that mean that that's going to happen?
The request would be made, yes.
Yeah, it's part of
this report. Okay, I think that's important.
Thank you. Councillor Qualley?
Just a quick question through you, Your Worship, to staff. Reading this now, it says the matter of designation be reviewed. When I first read it, I was reading it more as a holistic review rather than a specific review around designation. So this won't preclude staff from sort of reviewing the construction itself, right, of the interchange. This is only speaking to the actual designation.
That's correct. It's the actual designation.
I just read it wrong the first time, so thank you for that.
Thank you. Councillor Arneson?
Yes, thank you, Worship. I understand and thank Mr. Backen for the clarification that any future council can direct staff to review anything. However, I don't think that it's very positive at this time in terms of the messaging that we're going to enshrine some kind of review within 2 years. I think this has been protracted discussion. I think that if we're going to do it and we're able to do it, that's one thing, but I don't think it has a place in this discussion at this time. So I'm supporting taking that language out for the review.
Okay, thank you. Any further discussion on the amendment? Seeing none, I'll call the question. That's F11. On the amendment, yeah. Amendment carries unanimously. So back to the motion as amended. Councillor Arneson, did you have anything to add to the motion as amended? Okay. Any further discussion? Seeing none, I'll call the question on the motion. The motion as amended, F11. So the amendment. That's right. So the amendment was to remove those words starting at noting at the last paragraph. Okay?
I have something to say.
Oh, okay. So I'm going to cancel the vote. And Councillor Davis.
Now, this is to take the designation, this is to write a letter to TransLink to ask that we take off route designations from Glover and 96 Mavis River Road.
Mr. Back.
That's correct. If you look at the map on your screen, effectively what it would do is it would remove 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5, and 7. No, Mr. Seffi, you better help.
Your Worship, 1, 4, 5, 6, and 7 are being requested for removal. And addition would be Rollison Crescent.
To put from Rollison Crescent right around to River Road.
That's correct. From
we'd have to.
Yeah, that's correct.
And that covers all the upgrades that we're going to have on Rollison and down this little Snake Hill and the intersection at Rollison there where there's an we've upgraded those. Okay, so I couldn't find it in here, but landfills, milk trucks, delivery trucks to Fort Langley, new construction, that sort of stuff is not going to be an issue.
No, because any commercial vehicle, the rules are that a commercial vehicle that's designated to be on a truck route must stay on the truck route unless they're making a local delivery. Then they can leave the truck route and take the shortest possible route to their delivery and then back to the truck route. That is in the Motor Vehicle Act. I believe our regulations are one of those provincial legislations. And
okay, so
abide by that.
We're taking these off. Yeah. Why are we having, well, I know why we are. I'm being a little cheeky, but we're taking these off and we want to put one on at 216th. Well, no, we don't want to right now, but we're...
This is not the right map. You should be...
We're taking these off at the will of council, and the will of council, we want to put one on. I think it's... we're not putting one on, other than the Rollison Crescent here.
Yeah.
We're going to put the Rollison Crescent on. So I thought it was difficult for us to have the authority, like on 216th North, from Highway 1 to 88th. It's difficult for us to put that, to take that off, to put one on. It's being difficult. Okay.
So this is, all we're doing is directing staff to submit the revised application to TransLink. We can't do this without
But when it comes to putting on, we're going to put on another truck route from Highway 1 North to 88th. Now, I know we're not doing that now, but we're going to, council has that authority to do it, because we've got the authority to take it off right now. At least we're giving an application.
Mr. Backen, if you could, because I believe TransLink has it. We don't have the authority without TransLink approval.
I think the confusion exists as to removal of truck routes. Removal of truck routes requires TransLink's approval. Addition of truck routes, the township can make the bylaw to do so, but then there's a technical issue in terms of if they're going to be funded, then there still has to be some consent from TransLink, but they don't approve the truck route, they simply agree to the funding of it. In this circumstance, it's true that, as Mr. Seffi outlined, some of the red are coming off as part of this recommendation. Some of the red may have came off before, but the intent is to actually take most of the red off and to add Rolleston as the truck route to effectively go around Fort Langley. And why we can do that is there's been some loosening of some of the rules in terms of you can still get funding without there necessarily being truck routes in some circumstances. So that's the positive side of it. So.
Well, we're not going to get funding for those roads once we take them off.
They're off, and they won't be getting funding, but they won't be used as part of the commercial truck route anymore.
But
as you said, trucks that are doing local deliveries or actually working in the area can still use it. Or if trucks were having to, I guess, I can't think of a reason why they would in that location, trying to go from one truck route to the next, they could do so, but there's other ways to get around it in the network.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, thank you. See no further discussion, so I'm going to call the question on F11. That's F11 as amended. Okay. Carries unanimously. And move on to correspondence. G1, there's okay, for both, Councillor Fox moves, Councillor Long seconds. Receipt of both, discussion on receipt. See none, I'll call the question. Carries unanimously. There is an action item on G1, and that's if Council wishes to consider supporting the City of Langley. Councillor Fox moves it, Councillor Qualley seconds it. Discussion on that, Councillor Fox? Oops.
No. I just think it's good because I think that we need more emphasis on traffic fine revenue sharing. I mean, it's, yeah,
okay,
as recommended.
Okay, I'll call the question on G1. It carries unanimously. And on G2, so by receiving, are we referring, or we just refer, do we need a motion to refer this application? We're good, we've received it, so it just goes on. Okay, thank you. And a motion, sorry, Councillor. All right. Councillor Long, did you wish to speak to G2?
Yeah, I'd like to refer, if we're at that point of new business, because we're almost out of time here, but there's the delegations.
Okay, no, I'm not there yet. I'm not there yet. So,
just about there.
No, I'm going to clear the whole thing.
Let's get there.
Patience. Okay, I1, a motion to receive the minutes. Councillor Whitmarsh, second by Councillor Qualley. Discussion on I1. Seeing none, I'll call the question. Carries unanimously. And now we go to other business. Councillor Long, or Councillor Long, I know you.
Yeah, I think we should refer the two delegations, just both of them, which is E1 and E3.
So just on the, I'd just like to ask staff before I take a seconder, on the one with the toads, because it's time sensitive and by the time it comes to council, the toads will be run over. Is it possible that we could make a motion, and this basically would be to impose a restricted access on that for local traffic only and advisory signs? Is that a possibility, Mr. Seffi, or does it require more effort? Because I think the next meeting is not till July, 2 weeks from now.
Your Worship, I guess the only comments I would make is that prior to Council making a decision to direct staff one way or the other, Council should consider the classification of 20th Avenue is actually a collector road. Even though there is not a lot of traffic, it is a collector road. And the alternative, access routes for commuters who are not local residents would be 16th, which has, its implications in terms of safety and access and egress, etc. And the other thing to keep in mind is the fact that any signage, any closure would have to be coordinated with the City of Surrey because of the segment goes from 196th Street to 200th. So any signage that is installed would have to be coordinated with the City of Surrey.
So, Your Worship, it wasn't my intention actually to follow through with exactly what was presented, but rather referring it to staff. The time sensitivity is built in, and I guess staff would come back with a memo or something as to the best we can do.
Fair enough. Fair enough. I just want to make sure that's clear. So, you're referring both those delegations to staff. So that's been moved by Councillor Long, second by Councillor Qualley. So discussion on those delegations. Councillor Qualley, did you wish to speak?
No, I was just going to move the same.
Okay, so I'm going to call the question on that, and that would be J. And that carries unanimously. Is there any other business? Councillor Arneson.
No, yeah, it'll be quick. Our items distributed to council list. It is in June 14th, item number 13. It was some correspondence from the agricultural, well, actually, no, it was from the Minister of Agriculture. I wanted to refer it to staff for a report back. It's having to do with the abattoirs issue.
Okay. So that's a motion? A motion to refer?
Sure.
Yeah. Okay, is there a seconder to the motion to refer that item to staff?
What is the item?
Yeah, I can.
Is it on the 25th?
14th, I don't have that.
14 is the church.
Sorry.
Item number what?
Item 13.
Item 13. It's from Lana Popham to the township.
Okay, so did I get a seconder on that already? Seconder?
I want to send it to staff for a report back.
Refer it to staff.
Implications, yeah.
Yeah, it's referred to staff. So is there a seconder? Councillor Fox, discussion on that? Seeing none, I'll call the question. And what was that? What was the, I've lost my place in the agenda. What was the number?
It would be J2.
J2, thank you. Okay. Carries unanimously. Is there any other business? Seeing none, motion to terminate.
Termination.
Councillor Fox and second by Councillor Davis. All those in favor? Opposed and carried. Right on time. How do you like that?